Chapter 2632. The Blue Fox Family. 3. Back then, Gu Shijio could also tell that there was a mysterious magnetic field on the square, but she could not sense what the mystery was at the time. After she left the Blue Fox clan, a series of events happened to the group, but she did not pay much attention to it. Nonetheless, she still had a deep impression of the place and remembered the general layout here well. Now, the sapphire tiles in the square were still there, but the jade blue fox sculptures had disappeared. Instead, they were replaced by an extraordinary dome-shaped building. This structure had 8 metal spikes on the top of it, as well as a fox's face. The materials used to build the structure were also something that Gu Shijio had never seen before. It was like a very new type of composite material that was blue in color like water under the sun and was not made of soil or gold. Gu's Zygius line of sight fell on the face of the fox on top of the structure, which looked similar to the blue fox's totem that she had seen before. At first glance, she could tell that this building was newly built. Perhaps it was a gift from Guan Yining's people. After all, the material of this building did not belong to this world. The structure of the building resembled a place that was occupied by a general or commander. If Gu Shijio were not mistaken, it should be the base of these outsiders. The facilities here were extremely advanced and were guarded by 4 sergeants at the door. When they saw Guan Yining coming over, they saluted him together in unison. Guan Yining just nodded slightly to acknowledge them. He then used his pupils to open the door to the dome-shaped building. Even the door was covered with the face of a fox. It did not open from the sides, nor the top or bottom. Instead, a hole seemed to emerge from right in the middle of the door. After entering, the door immediately closed, preventing any intruders from following him in. When the admiral had opened the door, Gu Shijio was standing invisibly behind him and wanted to follow him in using her teleportation ability. However, she did not expect the building to block her ability to teleport. In the end, she merely crashed into the door. Although the door did not look like it was made of any particularly hard material, Gu Shijio found that half of her arm was faintly numb after the collision. Upon closer observation, she noticed that the door seemed to be made of a liquid, which was rather odd. Without having to put much thought into it, she could immediately tell that the liquid was poisonous. Fortunately, Gu's Zygius body was highly resistant to poisons. Nevertheless, it had, unfortunately, alerted the 4 sergeants guarding the entrance. Since Gu Shijio had used her invisibility spell, they could not see anything suspicious. The men quickly searched around the vicinity, but found no target that they had to abolish. In the end, they simply looked at each other confusedly. What the hell hit the door? Was that the wind? Bullshit. The wind has no such power. It sounded a person had hit the door. I am quite sure that it was a person. How can we not see it? If it is a person, they can't escape our eyes. Was it a ghost? Nonsense. How can there be ghosts in this world? There may not have a ghost in our world, but the people of this world seem to fear them. Furthermore, the people on this planet seem to practice some kind of sorcery. It is hard for us to say that there are no ghosts here. We have killed too many people. Perhaps some people have turned into ghosts and are looking for revenge. Heck, you don't scare yourself. Even a ghost cannot make its way into this place. Yeah, it can't go in, so it will wander outside the door. What's the use? I am not afraid of it. If the ghost dares to come over, I will shatter it into pieces. To be honest, we have always been Lone Rangers. Even when we were in the Blue Fox planet, we never put the king as a priority. Why are we worshipping Lan Yu as the king in this stupid starry crescent land? We even allowed him to live in our best facilities. Although the Blue Fox family is also a descendant of the Blue Fox planet, they have been living here for 1,000 years, and their bloodline has long been impure. I really don't know what our leader is thinking. Chapter 2633. Meet again, you idiot. Our ancestors of the Blue Fox family here on the Starry Crescent Land are from the bloodline of the royal family on the Blue Fox planet. These Blue Fox descendants have cultivated some extraordinary spiritual power. Perhaps our leader wants to capitalize on this benefit to take down an enemy. Hush! Stop gossiping. Do you want to die? Someone finally put an end to the discussion. Nonetheless, By that time, Gushijio had already heard a lot. Her heart suddenly sank in her chest. From what she gathered, she learned that the Blue Fox family was not original inhabitants of this continent, but came from the Blue Fox planet. Apparently, they came from the same planet as these invaders. In fact, they belonged to the royal family of there. She remembered that when she was in the lower bound with Di Fui in the past, they once discussed the origins of the Blue Fox family. At that time, Di Fui told her that the Blue Fox family was somewhat different from the people of this world. Their cultivation skills and ethnic land were somewhat strange. However, the Blue Fox family had long existed. At the very least, at the beginning of Di Fui's memory, they had already lived on this continent. This group of people kept a very low profile. They did not easily befriend any outsiders and did not interfere in the politics of the people. Therefore, Di Fui never cared about them. There were many other ethnic groups on the mainland, including demons, monsters, and mermaids. Perhaps Di Fui only treated them as part of the biodiversity of the land. On the other hand, Gushijio was generally not very concerned about the different species in the Starry Crescent land. After all, she was actually an alien here and not an aboriginal. However, she could not accept the fact that the invaders had almost destroyed the entire Starry Crescent land. They had also mistreated the people here. They were aggressors and thugs. Since these invaders were from the Blue Fox planet, was their arrival also related to the Blue Fox family? What role did Lan Yu play in it? Numerous questions wandered in Gu's Zygius mind. She squinted her eyes at the liquid door and was determined to see what was on the other side. It seemed that she could only find the answer to her question after she went in. The opportunity came soon enough when the whirlpool door opened again, with Guan Yinning emerging from the inside. Gu Shijio took the chance to sneak in at the very moment that the door was opened. Guan Yinning felt a faint breeze that passed him. It smelled like grass and trees. There were many other concerns on the Admiral's mind at that moment, so he did not pay too much attention to it. He merely gave a few orders to the soldiers at the door and then abruptly walked away. Meanwhile, Gushijio had finally got to see the inside of the dome-shaped building with her own eyes. The layout was huge, and the entire place seemed to be made out of unique soft metal. As she walked along the corridor, she could see a row of separated rooms. The color of the corridor was slightly blue as well. The entire experience made Gushijio feel as though she was entering into an alien spaceship. All the materials were unfamiliar to her. She touched it with her fingers to try to get a feel of it and realized it was very similar to the interior of the warplanes from before. The main obvious difference was the color scheme. There were also a lot of cameras in the corridor equipped with night vision mechanisms that could reveal any living things that walked by. Since Gushijio was familiar with this device from the aircraft, she managed to adjust her body to the temperature to match that of the surrounding walls so that she could stay under the radar. The further she ventured, the more she discovered. It seemed that not everything inside the dome was made of metal. After a few twists and turns, Gushijio found a place that looked very similar to a garden. There were flowers and grass in the garden, and there were even small bridges connecting different pathways. Of course, the flowers and plants here were also unlike any other that she had seen before. Even the flowing water in the area was accompanied by a milky fragrance. Although she wanted to explore the place further, Gushijio suddenly stood still when she saw a person in the garden planting something. A puppy that looked very much like a corgi was also running around the garden. Its limbs were short while its body was slightly fat. When it ran, it seemed like a ball, which looked very cute. Chapter 2634. Meet again, too. The man with the corgi was shirtless but wore a pair of light gray military pants and boots. Once again, the material was foreign to Gushijio. She observed the man who was squatting in the garden but could only see his back. With just a glance, she could tell that he was a man with a good physical build. The man possessed what was referred to as the perfect inverted triangle, broad shoulders with a healthy thin waist. The muscles on his back looked visibly bulged, and the vein line of his skin was well defined. His skin was also of healthy wheat color, and the muscles on his arms made him look extremely strong. Probably due to the humid environment inside the dome, this person had a large amount of sweat on his back. This only accentuated his masculinity. Who was this person? Gu Shijio had to find out, so she walked over stood in front of the man. Since this person could not see her, there was no reason for her to feel shy about seeing him topless. Her heart raced as his face slowly became visible to her. This person looked mixed race. If anything, his features were a combination of the best of both the West and the East. His sword-like eyebrows were long, and his phoenix eyes were sharp and deep. To add to that, he had a tall nose along with slightly thin lips. This person's beauty was exceptional. He was perfect without a single flaw, which looked unreal. Although he was merely planting herbs, he looked as though he was a crouching cheetah. The man's aura was undoubtedly compelling. Gu Shijio could not help but wonder if this man was the leader of the pack. Her gaze then fell upon the pair of white gloves on his hands. There was a certain sense of nobility or status that seemed to be attached to those gloves. It appeared to be something that only high-ranking officials would wear. Guan Yining had worn a pair on his hands too. Gu Shijio slightly squinted her eyes to try to study the gloves in more detail. She tried to connect the dots with the information that she had retrieved from all these invaders. According to what she got, these invaders were attacking Tianju Hall, and Guan Yining just happened to have left the battlefield. He returned to the station because he had to repair his damaged ships. Otherwise, he would have returned to the battlefield. The description made it sound as though the battle was very intense at Tianju Hall. Yet, this person was leisurely planting herbs in the base. Therefore, he must be holding an extremely high post, which gave Gu Shijio a dilemma. She pinched her fingers together carefully to assess her next move. She was not sure if she should kill this person now or go to Lanyu before doing so. She was hesitant to make any rash moves as she knew that she had not fully grasped what was going on. She was distracted in her thoughts. The man suddenly looked up at her with a pair of eagle eyes. Gu Zijia's heart jumped. This person had 2 layers of pupils. The color of his inner pupils was dark purple, which looked like a deep whirlpool. When he looked at people, it seemed to be able to ingest the soul of the person. That certainly gave Gu Shijio a scare. Although she did not believe that he could see her with his bare eyes, Gu Shijio remained still. It was only a moment later that she realized that his sight was not on actually her, but the person behind her. Gu Shijio looked behind her and shivered involuntarily. A man in a light blue robe stood behind her. He had long hair and had a handsome face. It was Lanyu. He looked at the man who squatted in his garden and asked, "Duan Mayan, is the herb done?" "She is not in good condition." Apparently, the handsome mixed-race man was Duan Mayan. He glanced at Lanyu momentarily, but then looked down and focused on the herb he was planting. His fingers lightly wiped on the surface of the herb, which was rather unusual. Fortunately, Gu Shijio was very focused on the man's every move. She noticed that there seemed to be a magnetic field on the man's finger, which made the herb blossom at a visible speed under his touch. When the flower opened to the size of a large cup, Duan Mayan plucked it and then stood up. "Let's go and see her." He then strode forward like a tall and sturdy military general. Although it might be an illusion, Gu Shijio felt as though the man could actually see her. Chapter 2635. Meet Again 3. It certainly seemed as though he saw her, but then moved away. But did he really see her? Gu Shijio had this question in her heart. Fortunately, with her current abilities, she did not need to be too concerned. If he did pursue her, she was sure that she could fight or flee. Nonetheless, this person's abilities were remarkable, to say the least. He could grow herb at will. Was he the assigned doctor for the soldiers here? And who was the person they wanted to save with this herb? These questions went around Gu Zijia's mind as she followed them to learn more. After several successive turns around the place, and a vault-like cabin appeared in front of them. Again, the hatch could only be opened from scanning their pupils. After Lanyu opened the door, he went in together with Duan Mayan. Understanding the mechanism of the door, Gu Shijio stood closely behind them and quickly joined them once the door was open. When she saw the person who was lying on the bed, her heart stopped. A female dressed in a light gray military uniform with her hair was tied into a ponytail laid across the bed. Her chest was wounded, and her face was ashen. She seemed to be seriously injured. Although this person looked different from before, Gu Shijio could recognize her at a glance. It was Lan Weihu. She was Gu's Zijia's companion and best friend back in the day when she was in Tianju Hall. She was also Yin Chen's wife. When she married Yin Chen, Gu Shijio and Di Fui hosted their wedding. Curiously, Gu Shijio wondered why she was not holding the fort with Yin Chen in Tianju Hall. Why was she lying here? And what made her dress in a military uniform? Even though she was a member of the Blue Fox family and also a national master, she truly loved Yin Chen, and the two of them were inseparable. Even if she learned that she was a descendant of the Blue Fox planet, she would not side with these aliens to take control of the Starry Crescent land, right? What was wrong with her anyway? How did she get into such a critical condition? As the two men walked in, Duan Mayan went straight to the bed and hung the medicine in his hand over Lan Wei's wound. Upon squeezing the herb, some light brown liquid dripped down and fell on her injured chest. In just a brief moment, Lan Wei's eyelashes trembled, and she could open her eyes. Even though she could see her surroundings, she did not speak. In fact, it looked as though she had no emotions. "Have you given up?" Duan Mayan finally spoke. His voice was deep, magnetic, and pleasant to the ear. Lan Weihu closed her eyes again upon hearing what he had to say. In response, Duan Mayan smirked and exclaimed, "Stupid." Lan Yu interrupted them and asked, "Has she recovered? It won't be so fast." Although this medicine is effective to the people of the Blue Fox family, her injury is a spiritual injury. It will take at least another 2 doses of medicine to heal her. Gu Zijia's eyes fell on Lan Wei's face while the conversation went on. Although her facial features made her look like Lan Weihu, her temperament seemed to have changed. She used to be lively and cheerful, but now she was somewhat depressed and indifferent to her surroundings. There was also a fiery red cinnabar stone in between her eyebrows. Was this her? Gu Shijio seemed to ask herself this question in her heart. Gu Shijio approached her body to take a closer look at her wound. Since her military dress was unbuttoned, Gu Shijio could tell that her injury was around the upper part of her chest. Gu Shijio was stunned by the sight of the wound as she recognized it straight away. This injury was caused by a fiery palm attack. To the best of Gu Zijia's knowledge, the only person who knew how to use the fiery palm attack in Starry Crescent Land was Yin Chen. But Yin Chen loved Lan Weihu so profoundly. So how could he hurt her so badly? Was it possible that the Lan Weihu in front of her was merely an imposter? Had she been cloned? After the two gentlemen chatted briefly, Duan Mayan left the room. Lan Yu had told him the concerns that he had, as well as the areas in which he wanted Duan Mayan to pay more attention. Gu Shijio naturally followed the man out, since there was nothing she could do for Lan Weihu. When she left, she looked back and saw Lan Weihu lying motionless on the bed. However, there seemed to be tears rolling down the corners of her eyes. Chapter 2636. Siege. Lan Yu sat by her side and continued to watch her. He seemed to be lost in thought. After a moment, he reached out and held her little hand. Gu Shijio was stunned by what she saw. She was about to look again, but the door was closed behind her. She spent the next few moments looking to the ground as she followed Duan Mayan out of the chamber. After a while, she found herself back in the garden. It seems the man was back to plant more herbs. It was evident that he was growing the herbs necessary to help Lan Weihu improve her condition. For the entire journey here, Gu Shijio had gripped her fingers tightly together in order to prepare to launch a spell. She could now kill the person in front of her with her bare hands. But if she did so, she suspected that Lan Wei's injury would not be healed. Since the man was probably just a doctor, Gu Shijio did not feel the need to kill him. She felt that it was more important for her to head to Tianju Hall first to understand the extent of the situation. Therefore, she turned and left without launching any attacks. Behind her, Duan Mayan slowly raised his head and stared at Gu Zijia's back as she left. His eyes flashed slightly, as if he had a sudden thought or inspiration. Once she left, he could not help but smirk. It was clear that he was aware that Gu Shijio was here. However, it was much sooner than he had expected. He stared at the herb in his hand, and the herb trembled slightly in his palm. The branches and leaves gently rubbed his palm, as if it was trying to please him. He bent his finger and played with the herb using a nail. He then whispered, "Good." Tianju Hall had been besieged for 4 months. No one could leave during the entire period. The people of the Starry Crescent Land had to stay within the barrier to avoid being chased by weird machines. These machines were highly resistant to any attacks that the people here had launched at them. There was nothing that they could do. No one in Starry Crescent Land had experienced this before. They did not even know how to deal with it and could only watch in city after city collapsed under this terror. The emperors of the various countries sent dozens of letters to Mu Feng and the other 3 messengers in search of a solution or at least some hope. However, although Mu Feng and the team had made a drastic attempt to destroy a small warship, it did not help. There was no way they could protect the Starry Crescent Land if it took them so much effort just to battle with a warplane. 2 places in the Starry Crescent Land possessed strong wizardry barriers. They were the Biwu Palace, where the Lord stayed, as well as Tianju Hall. The Biwu Palace was a very special place. Only people with level 9 spiritual power and above could enter. If other people rushed in, they would perish. Therefore, it was not a suitable place to keep people safe. The only option available to them was Tianju Hall. Fortunately, the area was vast. There were many buildings inside, and there were mountains right behind Tianju Hall, which provided the people with an area to hunt for food. The wizardry barrier around Tianju Hall was said to be established by the Lord due to its unique geographical location. Since this was the work of the Lord, it was unsurprising that the aliens found it difficult to penetrate the barrier. In the end, many people decided to seek refuge in Tianju Hall. Most of the people who came already possessed a high level of spiritual power. Since these people predicted that they may be stuck here for a while, they brought a lot of gold and silver with them in case they needed to make purchases. Unfortunately, it did not really make a difference since there was a clear shortage of food. The accommodation was also very problematic. Once these people relocated themselves to Tianju Hall, their lives immediately turned difficult. Mu Feng and the 3 messengers were still fine as they had adopted a technique that allowed them to live without consuming any food. However, most people would not be able to develop that skill and still needed to eat. Tianju Hall did not have large stocks of food, so after 3 months, it seemed that the people had completely exhausted the food supply in the place. There were no beasts left in the mountains to hunt anymore. Chapter 26:37 Siege 2. Everyone was worried because they were merely waiting for death at that point. There was no way out of the place, and hope slowly dissipated with time. Mu Feng and the other 3 messengers were overwhelmed by what they had witnessed. They could not see any hope as well for the people, but they could not say it out loud in fear that it would dampen their hopes. They still needed to encourage the people there to the best of their abilities. The only hope they could think of was the return of the Lord. The Lord will come back. She will come back and save us all. The Lord is extremely skillful and intelligent. She will definitely find a way to destroy these iron-armored monsters. Let's keep the faith and be patient. The Lord will not abandon us. She must be busy with something, but with her abilities, she can quickly get herself out of trouble and come back to save everyone. The Lord, the 4 messengers needed to keep the spirits high so that everyone could hold on a little longer. In the beginning, it was easy to keep them high-spirited, but as the days continued to pass, everyone grew more and more anxious. The Lord has been gone for 2 years. Perhaps she has met with an accident. Maybe she has abandoned us. She might have been attracted by the wonderful life in Upper Bound and is no longer coming back to Starry Crescent Land. After all, there is nothing here for her. Discouraging words started to circulate Tianju Hall. The people had lost their hope in the Lord, and even in Mu Feng and the other messengers. Fortunately, Mu Feng and others were good at managing people. Together with the leaders from the Tianju Hall, they were able to pacify the situation momentarily. Nonetheless, desperation and despair grew with starvation. The shadow of death was hanging on their heads, and everyone did not know where to go or what to do. It was only until one fine day that the four messengers suddenly remembered the existence of one person all at the same time. The former Lord, Celestial Master Zwa, who is also known as Di Fui. This memory came to them so suddenly, as if it was initially locked away in the deepest part of their mind, but was suddenly triggered by a mechanism and floated all the way to the surface. It was an overwhelming feeling for them to process all the information at once, and their eyes turned red at the thought of it. It was unbelievable. The four of them quickly regrouped and shared their sudden revelations, realizing that it was fairly consistent with one another. In a state of frenzy, they quickly searched for Di Fui's friends and confidants to check if they had experienced anything similar. It seemed everything was real. Mu Feng and the three other messengers were filled with emotions, especially Mu Feng. He was the most intelligent among the messengers and had multiple perspectives in his mind. He proposed a possibility. Did we suddenly remember the previous Lord because he was reborn? Is he coming back? This assumption had inspired many people and gave everyone new hope. However, as time went by, this new hope started to fade again. It had been nearly a month since they recovered this long-lost memory. By now, the people in Tianju Hall had resorted to eating the roots and bark of trees, but they still could see the shadow of the Lord, Huang Tuesday. He never came back. Perhaps it was only their memories that were restored. It was possible that his immortalization was a fact they could not change. If that were true, there was no way for him to save the people in Tianju Hall from the problematic situation. In the past, Gu Shizhou had made a lot of directed audio spells for her subordinates and followers. Mu Feng and the other three messengers taught this skill to the other people in the Starry Crescent Land, and soon, everyone created them. Before the most recent time that Gu Shizhou went to the upper bound, almost all the masters in Starry Crescent Land with spiritual power higher than level 5 had one directed audio spell in hand. It was easy for them to connect with each other using this device. Chapter 2638, Siege 3. When the aliens from the Blue Fox planet had invaded the Starry Crescent Land, everyone started to use the spell to communicate with each other. However, over the past month, the Blue Fox soldiers were able to construct a device that could intercept the contents of their direct audio. Therefore, using the spell to communicate was basically the equivalent of leaking information to the enemy. After Mu Feng and his people suffered a few losses, they knew that something had come up and ordered the destruction of all the spells, which consequently broke the connection between them and anyone outside of the Starry Crescent Land. So, even after Gu Shizhou returned and created havoc for the enemy, Mu Feng and the people in Tianju Hall were unaware of her presence. However, it was safe to say that they were not completely ignorant. It became apparent to them that the number of battleships that surrounded Tianju Hall seemed to suddenly have reduced by more than half, as if they had received some instructions to support a different location. The moon was bright, and the stars were sparse. Everyone had been hungry for another whole day. They were generally very sleepy and exhausted due to the lack of food and nutrition. Needless to say, hope had come and gone for them. Mu Feng and the other three messengers stood on a high platform and were ready to encourage everyone again as they had been doing ritually. But this time, what Mu Feng was about to say was going to be slightly different. I think that the Lord is back this time. Did any of you notice that there were significantly fewer battleships outside Tianju Hall today? Everyone, please bear with us and persist for another day. I think that the Lord will be here by tomorrow. Yes, the Lord will not abandon us. She has likely been fighting outside Tianju Hall against these people. Mu Yin echoed. Mu Feng, can you stop wasting your breath? If the Lord are going to help us, she would have been here a long time ago. Why would she have us wait until we are desperate? Finally, someone dared to voice their true opinion. I agree. Perhaps the metal monsters left because they wanted to go home and rest. Either that, or maybe they're going to study how to break through our wizardry barrier here. Haven't you noticed that our wizardry barrier is getting weaker by the day? Yes, at first, they couldn't even shake the wizardry barrier, but now, they're getting more and more powerful. There is even a crack in the barrier. The crack has been repaired. Mufeng was quick to point that out. Messenger Mufeng, it's not that we don't trust you. This wizardry barrier is a blessing given to us by the two lords, so is strong. But can you be sure that the repairs you did have made the barrier as strong as before? Mufeng looked down at his feet upon hearing the last reply. Indeed, he could not be certain. Although the wizardry barrier around Tianju Hall was powerful, after 4 months of persistent attacks from those armored iron machines, there were signs of damage around the barrier of late, and perhaps it really would not be able to last too much longer. The outsiders only looted ordinary people, but they still let live since they were no threat to their operation. However, they were killing people with high spiritual power without any mercy. These people who hid in Tianju Hall were all of high spiritual power, and there was only one thing in store for their future, was the barrier is shattered. Since they're going to die sooner or later, why are we getting starving here and waiting to die? Why don't we just rush out and fight together? Yeah, I would rather die on the battlefield than starve to death. Let's fight with those bastards. It is better than dying in here without even contributing anything to the starry Crescent Land. Even if we only destroy 2 warplanes, we would have already done more than just sit here and wait to die. It was clear that the people here had accumulated a lot of negative energy from all their anxiety and hard times. They needed a form of release, and since some people in the group had suggested a fight, the rest seemed to have agreed and wanted to do the same. They had been cooped up for so long in here and just wanted to leave. Mufeng calmly responded, "If we had a chance to win, do you think I wouldn't want to fight? Have you forgotten what had happened just 1 month ago?" Everyone remained silent after that reminder. A month ago, someone in Tianju Hall could no longer stand living this kind of trapped life and wanted to go out and get some food. After a few repeated requests, Mufeng finally agreed to let Yin Shun lead a few people with spiritual powers above level 8 to exit the barrier quietly. Chapter 2639. Siege 4. The 4 messengers did not expect the group of people who snuck out to be attacked as soon as they had passed the wizardry barrier. They were almost completely annihilated. Only Yin Shun was able to return with Wei Hu. Back then, only a few of us had walked out of the wizardry barrier. If we all rushed out together, they might not be able to stop us. It will already be considered a success if one of us is able to escape from this calamity. Yeah, that is right. Let's not wait any longer. The remaining survivors were clearly rooting for this option. Being cooped up in this place for too long made them want to find any reason to escape. Mufeng was also growing desperate. They had been holding on for so long, but the reinforcements had not come. It was possible that no one was going to rescue them. If that were the case, perhaps rushing out altogether would provide them with a glimmer of hope. Maybe some of them would be able to survive. But this decision impacted the lives of thousands of people, so he had to make sure that it was really a feasible option for everyone. In fact, it was very likely that the 4 of them would survive if they were to rush out of Tianju Hall. However, Mufeng was certain that not many of the remaining survivors would make it far. These people were the hope for the Starry Crescent Land. If the entire team was demolished, the Starry Crescent Land would no longer have a future. On the other hand, if they did not try to escape, there was no grain of rice left in Tianju Hall to feed them. Even the grassroots had been dug up. They were bound to die of starvation if they continued to stay here. Every time Gu Shizhou left the Starry Crescent Land, she would request that the 4 messengers do their best to protect the people here. It was truly a dilemma for them, because protecting them might also mean killing them. Whatever decision they made, people were going to die anyway. The revelation moved Mufeng to tears. He glanced at the crowd below him and looked at his 3 brothers again in search of a solution. Mu Lei and the other messengers have been feeling miserable as well. They also wanted to leave the place, regardless of the consequences. It became clear from the facial expressions of the other messengers that they had made up their minds to fight till the end with these people. If they were destined to die, they would at least make sure their lives meant something at the very end. Mufeng's attention then moved to Gu Kanmo, Yin Shun, and his other close comrades. He was looking for their approval and support to move forward with the plan. Let's do it. Gu Kanmo and Yin Shun responded together. They both looked desperate to do something for the team. Mufong closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Okay, let's fight. Since everyone agreed with the idea of rushing out of Tianju Hall, the team started to pack their things and went to say their final words to their companions and relatives. After all, it was very likely that they would all perish tonight, but at least they would die with their loved ones. After some time, the four messengers, Gu Kanmo, and the rest of the leaders stood in the square. They were waiting for the others to say their goodbyes and gather here once they were ready. After that, they would open the wizardry barrier and rush out all together to distract the enemy. As time passed, the people slowly grouped at the square. The three emperors of the different kingdoms had also come to the square under the protection of their respective subordinates. In fact, the three of them were very skillful and could significantly influence the battle. They were no longer dressed in their robes, but instead wore an attire that was suitable for a fight. As leaders, they should set a good example and be willing to sacrifice their lives for their people. Watching the respective emperors ready themselves for battle had hit everyone right in the heart. It was certainly a possible reality that none of them would live another day. The tragic atmosphere spread throughout the square like wildfire. Qian Lingyu, the emperor of Haoyue Kingdom, drank some water from a bowl and then slammed it on the ground. He announced, "Everyone, let us gather on Huangquan Road. Everyone needs to contribute to the fight. Even if we can only destroy one warplane, it would already be considered a success. Okay, let's assemble on Huangquan Road. Let's give them a fight." Everyone raised their bowls and finished their water. They raised the bowl in their hands and were about to smash it on the ground as well, but were interrupted by a sudden breeze in the air. Someone asked, "What are you all doing?" The sound of this person's voice was cold but pleasant to hear. Even though Mu Feng still held the bowl in his hand at the time, when this person spoke, the bowl slipped and fell to the ground. He quickly looked up to see who it was that had spoken. He saw a new face in the square. This person was dressed in white and had a powerful aura that was accompanied by a beautiful face. It was none other than Gu Shijio. Their lord was finally back. Pack, pack, pack. Countless bowls fell to the ground, and numerous pairs of eyes were focused on the lord. The people did not even dare to blink their eyes, as they were worried that it could just be a dream. Perhaps the lord would disappear if they were to get distracted for even a second. The entire square was silent as the people held their breaths. Chapter 2640. Between the real and the fake, some of the people here had never met Gu Shijio, but her aura made it clear to them that she was someone significant. Having been trapped for such a long time without food made them look pale and weak in comparison to her. To make matters worse, the people did not even bother to do their laundry or clean themselves, which only made them look worse. In some ways, they resembled beggars on the streets. Meanwhile, there was a faint circle of light that encapsulated Gu Shijio, giving her an aura of supremacy. "My lord!" Mu Feng could no longer keep his composure. In fact, his legs grew weak as soon as he saw her. "My lord! My lord! My lord!" Those who knew her had immediately addressed her out loud. Most of them were already kneeling on the ground, and some even started crying. They were completely at a loss for words. Others among the crowd could not believe their eyes and kept rubbing them. Meanwhile, some even started to dance out of excitement. In a plethora of different responses, there were also a few people who actually passed out, as they could not suppress their overwhelming joy. In the end, a huge part of the crowd was already kneeling on the ground. Their lord was finally here to save them all. Tears started rolling in Gu Zijia's eyes. Her friends, and most importantly, her people had been through so much pain. She looked at their pale faces and sighed. "I'm sorry for coming back so late." She made amends by bringing them the most precious thing they needed now, food. Gu Shijio assumed that most of the people in Tianju Hall must be starving, so before she left the base of the Blue Fox family, she actually went to the grain store first. The store was heavily guarded, but these soldiers posed no threat to Gu Shijio at all. She defeated them all rather easily and took everything that she could find in the store. As a great deity, her storage space had also increased along with her spiritual power. She could easily store tons of food in her sleeves, so she decided to take everything they had, including some vegetables from another store. There were plenty of vegetables and meat, along with even a wide selection of dressings and spices. Conveniently, she cleared out the entire store and brought the supplies to Tianju Hall. Bustling waves of excitement spread across the hungered people as soon as they saw what she had for them in her bag. Soon, clouds of smoke rose from the open kitchen chimneys in the area, and pots and pans could be heard clanking about. Even though not every one of them knew how to cook, most of the people found themselves in the kitchen. Some were in charge of cleaning the rice, while others were busy washing, picking, and frying the vegetables. Meanwhile, the rest had to cut and grill the meat that Gu Shijio brought with her. Since the kitchen knives were too blunt, some people actually offered to use their swords and weapons to cut the meat and vegetables. The lack of food had driven these people to the point of desperation earlier. After all, most of them were just mortals with flesh and bones. It had been too long since they last had a proper meal. Most of them had been surviving on grass and roots for quite some time. All they wanted was to get to taste some real food. All these people used to live very comfortable lives prior to the invasion of these iron machines. There was never a shortage of food or good clothing. Their only concern in the past was about how good their food tasted and whether the texture and presentation were apartment. Nonetheless, their perception of food changed drastically now. A soft, hot bun would already make them very happy after months of starvation. Everyone was busy with the preparations, as they wanted to eat as soon as they could. Gu Shijio spoke to the 4 messengers as soon as the opportunity arrived. Excited, they face turned slightly red, and they even stammered as they spoke. They briefed her about what had happened during the years of her absence, so Gu Shijio quickly got a general idea of the whole situation. Chapter 2641. Between the Real and the Fake. 2. Mufone was thrilled to see Gu Shijio, but he was reluctant to ask her anything about Di Fui. Since he did not come along with her to Tianju Hall, the messengers were unsure whether or not he had been resurrected. As this was obviously a very sensitive topic for Gu Shijio, they did not want to risk hurting her feelings just to satisfy their curiosity. She took a long time to get over Di Fui, so they did not think it was appropriate to mention anything about the past. In fact, they did not even ask how Gu Shijio had been for the past 2 years. While talking to them, Gu Shijio suddenly saw something that caught her attention. She was looking at Yin Chun was busy cooking in an open kitchen. He was not alone. There was a lady in a pink dress standing beside him. The woman's eyes were big and bright, which fully complemented her small, pinkish lips. When she smiled, her 2 dimples were very apparent. The woman looked like Lan Weihu. Was Lan Weihu really there, helping Yin Chun with the fire while he cooked? They were obviously having a good time together in the kitchen. Gu Shijio also noticed something else about Lan Weihu. While most of the people looked weak and starved, Lan Weihu looked just as healthy as ever, only slightly slimmer. She also kept looking at Gu Shijio, but seemed to be afraid to approach her. Therefore, Gu Shijio decided to make the first move. Both Yin Chun and Lan Weihu were close friends of hers. After all, they had been through so many hardships and fought so many battles together back in school. To Gu Shijio, they were more than just friends. Although Gu Shijio had become the Lord, she never ceased to visit them whenever she was in the lower bound. All 3 of them had forged a strong bond over the years and maintained it quite well despite their different schedules. The lovely couple had been trying to have a baby, but could not, which was probably somehow related to Lan Weihu's bloodline in the Blue Fox family. She was eager to be a mother and to share a child together with the man she loved, but their attempts always ended in vain. In the past, Gu Shijio had tried to examine her health condition and even offered her some supplements to help her become better prepared for pregnancy. Nonetheless, nothing seemed to be able to turn things around. Luckily, both Yin Chun and Lan Weihu had achieved a level 9 spiritual power. In return, their lifespan had been greatly increased as well. They could live for at least 1,000 years, so Yin Chun was not worried about having a baby for now. He often told Lan Weihu that there was plenty of time in the future, so there was no need to rush. They were genuinely a very loving and blissful couple. Sometimes, Gu Shijio wished that she could have a love story that was just the same as theirs. As soon as they saw Gu Shijio, they tried to contain their bursting excitement and greeted her formally. Nonetheless, she dismissed their overly courteous welcome and started talking with Lan Weihu, who seemed very happy to see her again. Smilingly, Gu Shijio listened to all her stories, just like before. Lan Weihu was just as adorable and lively as Gu Shijio could remember. In fact, nothing about her seemed to have changed. Yinshan also loved Lan Weihu very much. He pampered her and took care of her the very best that he could. Thus, there was no need for Lan Weihu to grow up and face the cruel world on her own. Upon seeing Lan Weihu, she recalled the injured woman that she saw on the base of the Blue Fox family. The woman was wearing a military suit, and her injuries seemed rather severe. She looked despaired and unhappy, which was a completely different personality trait from what Gu Shijio knew Lan Weihu to possess. She remembered recognizing that the latter's temperament was very different from Lan Weihu's. Therefore, Gu Shijio concluded that the woman before her eyes should be the real Lan Weihu. Nonetheless, she still wondered who was the woman in the military suit. Could she be Lan Weihu's relative? Was it only a coincidence that they shared the same look? Many questions had arisen, but Gu Shijio had to wait for the right time to ask them. All of a sudden, Lan Weihu's bloated belly had caught Gu Zijia's attention. "Weihu, are you pregnant?" Lan Weihu blushed crimson as she nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, for 3 months now. Congratulations. Both of you deserve the best." Gu Shijio was so happy for her. She knew how much Lan Weihu wanted a baby. While they spoke, Yinshan was sitting quietly at the side, seemingly preoccupied. He was never the talkative type, but today he was unusually quiet. Chapter 2642. Between the Real and the Fake. 3. The only interaction Gu Shijio had with Yinshan was a formal greeting and nothing more. When the opportunity presented itself during her conversation with Lan Weihu, Gu Shijio casually asked her, "Weihu, do you happen to have a sister who looks exactly like you?" Astonished, Lan Weihu gasped in reply, "Ah." Yinshan suddenly interrupted, "Shijio, I have a word with you? Preferably alone?" Gu Shijio looked at him and nodded. "Sure." Lan Weihu wanted to say something, but was dismissed by Yinshan. He gave her a tap on the hand and said, "You should go and have some kanji first while I speak with Shijio about something important. I will finish cooking the dish later. We will be right back." Obediently, Lan Weihu agreed, "All right." It was a full moon that night, but a thin layer of mist had hidden the moon. The land did not quite glitter under the fading moonlight. Gu Shijio and Yinshan were standing on the shore along the river while everyone else was having their meal in the canteen. They were all alone in the open, undisturbed. "Shijio, why did you ask Weihu that question? Have you found anything?" Yinshan had the habit of addressing Gu Shijio as the Lord when they were in public places. But when they were alone, he still called her by her name, like a friend. Certainly, it was also what Gu Shijio preferred. After all, she hoped to maintain a close relationship with those that she called friends. Gu Shijio fixed her eyes on Yinshan as she studied his appearance. He looked well-built and tall, probably around 20 years old. Aging had not done any harm to his handsome face at all. Casually, Gu Shijio crossed her arms and slowly said, "I have come across a woman who looks exactly like Weihu. The person seems like a clone of her. She looked injured, so I took the chance to examine her injuries and thought that you might be responsible for the damage. Have you met her?" Yinshan pinched his lips into a tight line. "She is different from Weihu. Weihu does not have a burgundy birthmark on her forehead. Also, she is not a cruel and violent woman. A couple of days ago, the invaders stopped attacking all of a sudden, and many of the troops had left. Eagerly, everyone was delighted to go outside and celebrate, but we knew just how cunning these enemies actually were. Mufone was concerned that this might be a trap, so he sent me outside with them to be safe. As soon as I left Tianju Hall, I bumped into the clone and was shocked. At first, I thought that Weihu was snuck out again as she used to in the past, but the more I observed, the more doubtful I grew. Although she looked just like Weihu, her aura was completely different. She seemed a little dark." "A dark aura?" Gu Shijio added. "Why did you think so?" When I saw her, she was trying to kill a rabbit. Then, she sank her teeth into the rabbit's neck and started drinking its blood. Gu Shijio remained quiet as she listened to his explanation. She heard me and turned around to look at me, with bloodstains on her lips. She ran towards me, but I immediately pushed her away. The next thing I knew, she started saying that she was Weihu and that she was caught when she snuck out of Tianju Hall with me about a month ago. She told me that the past month had been a torment for her, and that she was finally able to escape from her captivity. She wanted me to take her home. Gu Shijio seemed confused. What happened 1 month ago? About a month ago, the food supply in Tianju Hall was running very low. Along with 20 other skilled men, I volunteered to find food outside the wizardry barrier. Little Fox was worried for me, so she sneaked out with us. We fell into a trap, and our men kept getting slaughtered. It took me long enough to fight a way out alive, and I only found Little Fox while I was on my way back. I took her hand without any second thought, and she has been with me ever since. How could she possibly be captured? Moreover, Little Fox is a gentle person with a kind heart. Why would she torture an innocent rabbit? Chapter 2643. Between the real and the fake. 4. The woman lied to me. Nothing that she said ever made any sense. I asked her questions about things that only Little Fox and I knew, but she could not answer anything. Eventually, she was frustrated and started attacking me. At first, I did not want to hurt her because of the close resemblance between her and Weihu. But soon, help came to assist her. I was forced to defeat her and make my escape. Gu Shijio asked Yin-Chen a few more questions and did not find anything to be suspicious about. She agreed that the injured woman that she saw was indeed different from Lan Weihu. Perhaps the woman was only a puppet created by the people from the Blue Fox planet. It was highly likely, as their technology was clearly more advanced than what they had in the Star Crescent land. Nonetheless, there was still a chance that the lady was a distant relative of Lan Weihu, since she was still part of the Blue Fox family. Although this matter was important, Gu Shijio had to leave as she had many other things to attend to for now. Meanwhile, Yin-Chen stood where he was and looked at his own hands, blankly. The woman was clearly not Lan Weihu, but his heart ached for her as soon as he hit her. He had an involuntary urge to carry her in his hands the moment she collapsed. The feeling stuck with him until now. He stood gazing at the moon, contemplating the recent events. Suddenly, he noticed something. Who is that? He turned around abruptly to check. Yin-Chen, it is me. Lan Weihu appeared from behind a tree and ran towards him. Don't run so fast. You are pregnant now, so you have to be more careful. Yin-Chen quickly grabbed her hand. Lan Weihu was smiling at him very sweetly. I know. I will be careful. This baby did not come easy. It belongs to the Yin family. Little Fox, you do know that I don't care about my family name, right? I only care about the baby because it is ours. I know. Lan Weihu reassured while grasping his arm tightly in hers. Her smile was exceptionally bright, even under the pale moonlight. Her cheeks blushed crimson with delight at his care for her. Yin-Chen found her so beautiful that even the brightest stars of the night were incomparable to the starlight in her eyes. Her full, pouty lips were as red as 2 rose petals. With her eyes closed, she moved her lips closer toward him as an invitation for him to come forward. Yin-Chen would usually go for the kiss, but now he did not feel like it. Lan Weihu waited for a moment, but she soon realized that nothing touched her lips. Yin-Chen, she opened her eyes and pleaded. Yin-Chen only caressed her forehead gently and said, All right, let's go back and eat something. He wanted to guide her back, but she stopped to ask him a question. Yin-Chen, will you come to my room tonight? Yin-Chen hesitated to reply. Ever since Lan Weihu was pregnant, he decided that they should sleep in separate rooms for the sake of their baby's well-being. He had been busy planning strategies to find a way out of Tianju Hall and hopefully take down the aliens, so sex was the last thing on his mind. Lan Weihu was obviously inviting him for sex tonight. He thought about it for a moment and decided to turn her down. Silly. You have a baby now? We shall not. We can still do it. Lan Weihu stared at him with her watery eyes and continued, The first 3 months of the pregnancy are dangerous, but it's safe after the first trimester. As long as we do it carefully, the baby will be fine. Yinshin was a little surprised. Who told you that? He had never heard of the theory before. Lan Weihu paused for a little before she smilingly replied, Shijio told me so. Would you doubt her? Gu Shijio was known to be highly skilled in medicine, so anything that she said would usually be right. Yinshin was a little caught off guard by Lan Weihu's desperate request. Tears were already rolling in her eyes because he seemed to have rejected her. Yinshin, don't you miss me at all? She then tiptoed to get closer to him. Chapter 2644. Working out a scheme, Lan Weihu proceeded to breathe warm air into his ears seductively. It was a pleasurable and yet tickling sensation for the Yinshin. Little Fox was generally a shy person, so she would not normally take the first step and invite Yinshin over for the night. Sometimes, she did not even feel comfortable about their intimacy. If she found that Yinshin had been too aggressive, she would completely shut him out for the following days. In her personal opinion, a successful relationship should be able to withstand the test of time. A casual stroll under the moonlight would already be a romantic gesture to her. However, she was not very keen on sexual intimacy. Deep down, she did not feel comfortable seeing a man and a woman caressing one another while naked. The physical part of her relationship kind of ruined her ideal picture of a perfect couple. Yinshin loved her dearly. He knew that she was not very comfortable with physical contact, so he had been cautious with his needs throughout the years of their marriage. Only in times of desperation would he call for desperate measures and get her into the mood. Yinshin was usually in control of himself, but that did not stop him from feeling the sexual excitement that a young man should have, especially when he was alone with his beloved wife. As soon as Little Fox knew that she was pregnant, it became her sole, legitimate reason to turn down all of his invitations. She even suggested that they should be sleeping in different rooms to avoid him from getting too sexually aroused. The child did not come easy, and Yinshin cared about the baby just as much as she did, so he agreed to her terms. However, Tianju Hall was now crowded with many refugees, so there were not enough rooms for them to sleep separately. If they insisted on splitting, they needed to share a room with other people. Therefore, Yinshin moved out and joined his buddies in the same room. He was worried that Little Fox might get bored, so he asked a friendly junior to share the room with her. Besides, there were too many things that Yinshin needed to attend to in Tianju Hall. He had been quite occupied trying to figure out a way for them to defeat the aliens, so there was hardly any time that he could spend with Little Fox. They only met once a day. Yinshin was a young man full of vigor. Therefore, the sight of his wife was enough to arouse him. When they were alone, he would not hesitate to hug and kiss her to show his affection. There was once when he got too close to her, which made Little Fox aware of his erection. She was appalled by it and immediately pushed him away. Yinshin was very embarrassed by the incident and left abruptly. For 3 days, he dared not visit her. However, he was then sent away for a mission, which was when Little Fox sneakily followed him to make sure that he was safe. Ever since their return, Little Fox seemed to finally understand her husband's needs and started taking more initiative to please him. However, Yinshin's injuries had prevented him from sharing any forms of intimacy. Also, his juniors and brothers had all died during the mission, so he had been feeling quite down lately about the loss of his comrades. Therefore, he chose to ignore all of Little Fox's sexual hints. In fact, he was not quite interested in any intimate engagements with her at the moment. Little Fox was obviously inviting him to bed right now, but he was not excited about it at all. He caressed her hair gently and said, "Go and have some food and then have a good rest. I need to see Principal Gu and discuss some matters with him." He then turned and left swiftly. Bewildered, Lan Weihu stood alone and watched as his figure disappeared in the dark. After a while, she put her hand on her tummy and gently caressed the baby. With a sigh, she slowly left. It was their first proper meal in 3 months. Everyone indulged in the feast. Gu Shijio had kept the meat from them, so the first meal was only vegetables and congee. She told them that it would not be good for their digestive systems since they had been starving for so long. Since they were so hungry, even the vegetables alone tasted amazing. The amount of food that Gu Shijiu brought was enough to feed everyone fairly well. Chapter 2645. Working out a scheme, 2. Even though they were really eager to fill their stomachs, they needed to consume their food slowly. Nonetheless, everyone was so happy just to be able to eat, so they all agreed to her suggestions and terms. The amount of food that Gu Shijiu had brought with her was enough to feed everyone for at least a month. The Lord's return had also shown a glimpse of hope on their tactics. Therefore, the strategists in the team started to work out their plans again. My lord, most of them have no spiritual power. It is only their kung fu that is good. The most impressive things about our opponents are their weapons and protective clothing. Nothing we have seems to be able to destroy their protective clothing. Also, their weapons are out of this world. That is right. Some of their weapons can even shoot fire and set an entire street in flames. Some release laser beams, too, turning any target into ashes. There is no way we can escape from it. Also, some of the weapons appear to vacuum the whole area when activated and suffocate every living being to death within the perimeters. Their ships can release certain sound waves that are not particularly irritating to the ears, but deadly enough to make the victims bleed to death from all the 7 orifices of their heads. Once they are in the ships, there is nothing we could do to take them down. The discussion continued. These people have been fighting against the intruders from the Blue Fox planet, so they knew exactly who they were dealing with. All of them quickly shared what they knew about their enemies to help inform their lord about the enemy. Gu Shijiu listened attentively. She knew how powerful the weapons were firsthand. Not many among the people of the Starry Crescent Land had the strength to withstand such weapons of destruction. The loss of lives was inevitable. You said that most of them do not possess spiritual power. Does that mean that some of them do? Mufone was first to respond to the question. Yes, some of them do possess spiritual power, somewhere between levels 6 to 7. I met one of them before and fought so hard to destroy his weapon, but he managed to escape in the end by channeling his spiritual power as a shield. However, his spiritual power was not like ours. It was something different. He then glanced at Lan Weihu and decided to stop talking. The enemy was too strong for the people of the Starry Crescent Land to resist. There was no way they could fight back, so they ended up having to flee. Furthermore, none of their spies had ever returned from their mission. Therefore, no one knew exactly where the enemy was from. Troubled, Gu Shijiu took a quick look at Lan Weihu and casually asked, "Little Fox, what is your opinion of these people?" Lan Weihu's kung fu was outstanding, but she was not good at voicing her opinions during major discussions. She was sitting in the corner with Yin Shan when she was called out publicly by Gu Shijiu. Surprised, she started stammering, I do not know them very well. Didn't you sneak out into the battlefield last month? Did any of them pursue you? Gu Shijiu asked gently. Lan Weihu did not know how to answer her question, so she turned and looked to Yin Shan for a solution. 2 men were trying to catch her. I assumed they wanted her alive, as they did not launch any fatal attacks. Yin Shan answered on her behalf. Gu Shijiu asked again, Little Fox, what did the 2 men tell you? Lan Weihu shook her head, but eventually said that they said something indecent, but nothing more. Gu Shijiu then looked at Yin Shan for confirmation. I made it in time to free her from the 2 men. They left as soon as I approached. Chapter 2646. Working out a scheme, 3. Since they were obviously without a ship, did you go after them? Yin Chun shook his head. Little Fox was hurt and clearly shocked by the incident. The 2 men possessed spiritual power, and I suspected that their weapons might be too powerful for me to handle, so I did not chase them. Many follow-up questions arose, as Gu Shijiu did not quite understand. Lan Weihu was the daughter of the high priest from the Blue Fox family. She had been quite close with them for the past few years, enough to earn her respect from the community. As far as Gu Shijiu was concerned, the people of the Blue Fox planet did not possess any spiritual power. As for the Blue Fox family that had been taking refuge in the Starry Crescent Land for thousands of years, their spiritual power was the result of their meditation and practice over time. The men who went after Lan Weihu should be members of the Blue Fox family as well, so they should know about Lan Weihu. She could understand why they wanted to keep Lan Weihu alive, but she did not understand why they harassed her. Moreover, Lan Weihu once told her that she had a certain connection to the people of her own family. A touch was enough for her to tell her people apart. These two men had injured and even harassed her. There was no reason that Lan Weihu could not recognize them. So why was she refusing to tell them the truth? Was she worried that things might become complicated for her if she spilled the secret of her Blue Fox family? Although the reason was legitimate, Lan Weihu was not the kind of person who would hide the truth away from Gu Shijio. Little Fox, have you tried contacting your people? Gu Shijio suddenly asked again. After a pause, Lan Weihu slowly said, No, I have not been in touch for more than a year. I have no idea how they are doing right now. Yinshin agreed with her. We have not visited the base of the Blue Fox family for over a year now. We wanted to go, but had to postpone our plans due to the invasion. Gu Shijio looked around her and asked, Is there anyone here from the Blue Fox family? I'm the only one, Lan Weihu answered grimly. Gu Camo sighed. The Blue Fox family has always been an independent community that hardly interacts with the outside world. I have not seen Lan Yu in a long while. There is no way for us to communicate with them as well. Furthermore, the base of the Blue Fox family is guarded with its own wizardry barrier. I believe that Lan Yu is capable enough to keep the invaders out. Perhaps they have not fallen into the hands of our enemy yet. No, the Blue Fox family has fallen, Gu Shijio reassured firmly. As she uttered those words, she was looking carefully at Lan Weihu and trying to observe her reaction. The crowd gasped in astonishment by the revelation, and Lan Weihu's face turned pale. Gu Shijio looked at her sternly, making her feel rather uncomfortable. She looked at Gu Shijio with her big, watery eyes and said in a trembling voice, My lord, have you visited them? Has their defense been breached? The base of our enemy is right where the Blue Fox family is located. The news was startling to all who were present. They gasped in astonishment. Gu Shijio continued to observe Lan Weihu. She was holding Yin Chen's finger very tightly, seemingly worried. Oh, my dear people. Gu Shijio shook her head, but said nothing more. Lan Weihu was even more worried by now. Her eyes were already soaked with tears. Little Fox, if you are really worried about them, I can take you to the base tomorrow, Gu Shijio offered. I'm going with her, Yinshin volunteered. He was worried for her safety, but he also knew that there was no way he could stop her from visiting her people in such times of distress. Lan Weihu did not answer immediately. She bit her lips nervously and said, The people from the outside are so powerful. Also, the base of the Blue Fox family is so far away from here. My lord, you need to stay here and look after these people. How can I selfishly take you away and put you in danger again? Chapter 2647. Working out a scheme for Don't Worry. I can handle them with ease. It will not be dangerous for us. I am pregnant with a baby. Lan Weihu slowly caressed her bloated stomach as she spoke, obviously reluctant to take the risk. Gu Shijio sighed. I sneaked into the base of the Blue Fox family through their ship, so I was not able to see anything from the brief visit. The place is the military base of our enemy, so I have to visit them again. Knowing their strength is the key to our success. However, I cannot seem to break through the wizardry barrier. Little Fox, as the high priest of Blue Fox family, you should know how to get us through, right? I do, Lan Weihu answered hesitantly. She looked at Yin Shun as if asking for help. Don't worry. The Lord will protect you. I will go with you, too. You have always wanted to visit your people, haven't you? If you're worried about them, we might as well take this opportunity to see how they are doing, Yin Shun reassured, while gently caressing her hand. Yin Shun could not help but look at Lan Weihu with a sense of doubt. Over the past month, she had never stopped telling him how worried she was about her people. She sobbed in front of him and even asked him to take her to see them. However, when Gu Shijio finally offered to take her there, Lan Weihu unexpectedly refused, despite the guarantees on her safety. With all the looks that she was receiving, Lan Weihu knew she had to take the offer. She took a deep breath and finally said, All right, We shall go tomorrow. All of a sudden, their discussion was interrupted by a spy. My lord, the strange ships have suddenly left us. They're no longer even attacking us. Gu Shijio nodded approvingly. Gu Kanmo seemed relieved at the news, but not entirely at ease. My lord, they did the same a month ago. They withdrew their troops all of a sudden, but it was all a part of their plan to lure us out. We lost dozens of men that day. I am afraid that they are using the same tactic again. Don't worry. They must have sensed the danger and thought that I might destroy another dozen of their remaining ships. They need a safer place to plan their comeback. Gu Kanmo looked at her in utter disbelief. My lord, you destroyed a dozen of their ships. Gu Shijio acknowledged his question with a nod and told them about her experience with the troops. The people were becoming more and more excited. They finally knew that the ships were not indestructible. After all, the sense of victory started to emerge among them. The more they spoke, the darker the sky grew. Gu Shijio offered to strengthen the wizardry barrier around Tianju Hall, as she could repair the broken barrier much better than Mu Feng did. Finally, the wizardry barrier was restored to its original force. It had been a long day for Gu Shijio, so she decided to go back and have a rest after re-establishing the barrier. Gu Kanmo offered her the best guest room to stay the night, but she refused. Instead, she chose to return to the place where Di Fui had once stayed. Mu Feng and his fellow comrades built the place, but when everything about Di Fui was wiped away, they could not remember whom they built it for. As soon as their memories were restored, the haunting melancholia took over. Anyway, Gu Shijio did not want any company tonight and entered the house alone. Mu Feng and his men stayed behind. They felt sad for Gu Shijio, as she must be overwhelmed with acute nostalgia about her past with the previous lord, Huang Tuesday. It seemed to them that the deceased lord would never return. They made a promise to one another that they would not mention a word about Huang Tuesday. That was the least that they could do to ease her pain. They would only keep Huang Tu in their hearts, so long as they served Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio was indeed reminiscing the past, but was not entirely saddened. She decided to sleep in a room where Di Fui used to stay and indulged in the enjoyable recollection of their past events. Fui, I wish you were here. You must be very worried about us in the Shuro world, but that is how it is now. You once said that we would need at least a year of preparation to leave the place. Perhaps when we meet again, our baby will already be here. How I wish you were here by my side to welcome our baby together. Chapter 2648. Had she misread the sign? Gu Shijio had accomplished many things that day. Even though she was drained by all that had happened, she could not bring herself to fall asleep. She laid on the bed where Di Fui used to sleep. Centuries had passed since the last time he laid there, so his scent was no longer traceable. However, all the furniture and arrangements of the room still reminded her of the past. The covers clung to her soft skin comfortably, but she found herself rolling around in bed. Since the cover once belonged to Di Fui, it was not surprising that it was of the highest quality. Everything that he used and owned would always be the best quality. Even after all these years, the cover still felt very soft and warm, reminding her of a wonderful summer day. Fui, do you miss me? You must be very anxious now. Perhaps it is time for you to feel how difficult it is to look for someone. In the dark, a smile seemed to appear on her face. To her people, she was the mighty lord. However, she behaved like a child when she was with Di Fui. Even the thought of him made her feel weak. Worrying about Di Fui was not something she would do this time around. He had finally recalled his past and even retained his powerful aura and kung fu. Nothing could possibly hurt him. Therefore, it was only a matter of time before they would be reunited. Excited about his return, Gu Shijio was eager to tell everyone that Di Fui had been resurrected, but she was concerned that it might be a heavenly secret. If she were to reveal another heavenly secret, she could not be sure of the consequences that awaited her this time. What if Di Fui's past was erased again? She could not afford to lose the man another time. Perhaps all that she needed to do was to be patient. She was certain that Di Fui would eventually show up. His appearance would definitely come as a shock to everyone, and she could not wait to see them gasp in disbelief. In particular, she looked forward to seeing the messenger's reactions. It would be very entertaining. Meanwhile, Gu Shijio was curious if they had already known about Di Fui's resurrection. Since Di Fui and Gu Shijio could recall the past, she assumed that everyone else would have their memories of Huang Tu restored. So, why hadn't they spoken a word of him? This oddity led Gu Shijio to believe that the people of the Starry Crescent Land did not experience the revelations that she had expected. They might have known nothing about it, in which case, it was of the utmost importance that Gu Shijio keeps his return a secret. Besides, it would not change anything for the time being. Secretly, Gu Shijio started imagining the day that they would finally meet again. She predicted that his next destination would be the Upper Bound. However, the channel that connected the Upper Bound and the Starry Crescent Land had mysteriously disappeared, so it would be tricky for him to come to her. Di Fui had told her that he once spent 6 months trying to look for a connection that could take him from the Upper to the Lower Bound, but could not seem to find one. What if he still could not find the way this time? The more she thought of it, the more insecure she became. Therefore, she eventually decided to get up and leave the bed. By the window, she stood and looked intently at the brilliant moon that lit up the night sky. The moon was a slender crescent, and part of it was obscured by the clouds, thus adding a slight hint of mystery. People often claimed that reunions would happen whenever there was a full moon. She could not help but wonder when she would see one. With a sigh, she started caressing her tummy. "Little one, you will probably be a young lady by the time you meet your father. Also, little D, how will probably be all grown up by then." The near future sounded kind of depressing for her, so she tried to shake the thoughts away. She went to bed again and put her hands securely on her tummy, which was still flat, not giving away any sign of her pregnancy, unlike little foxes. She sat up abruptly as soon as she thought of Lan Weihu. The woman that she saw in the base camp of the Blue Fox family was clearly not pregnant. It suddenly occurred to her that the pregnancy could be the way to distinguish between the two of them. Chapter 2649. Had she misread the sign? 2. Initially, Gu Shijio suspected that the Lan Weihu in Tianju Hall was a clone or an imposter. Likewise, she believed that the injured woman in the Blue Fox family's base was the genuine Lan Weihu. However, she did not have enough evidence to make a sound conclusion. The sudden realization that she had found a way to distinguish the two startled her. She decided to teleport to Yin Chun right away so that she could discuss the matter with him. Yin Chun was currently residing with one of the disciples of Tianju Hall. Just when Gu Shijio was about to arrive, a woman could be seen approaching Yin Chun urgently. "Brother Yin, little Fox is not feeling very well. You should go and check on her." Panicked, Yin Chun quickly went to see his wife. Meanwhile, Gu Shijio quietly followed him without revealing her presence. Yin Chun broke into the room abruptly and rushed to his wife's side. As for Gu Shijio, she used the invisibility spell and went in unnoticed. Lan Weihu was lying on the bed, looking pale and weak. Her lips were pouted as a reaction to the discomfort that she seemed to be facing. However, her eyes lit up as soon as she saw Yin Chun. In fact, she sat right up and opened her arms widely to invite him. Yin Chun embraced her and quickly checked on her as well. "What is it? Why did your stomach ache all of a sudden?" "I don't know. Maybe because I have accidentally sprained my back." Lan Weihu pressed her head on his chest and seemed to really be in pain. Yin Chun became nervous by her actions. "How did you sprain your back? When did it happen? How do you feel right now?" he asked while trying to examine her pulse. Unfortunately, the man was not a medical expert. He could help with some simple external injuries, but he did not know much about the complications that came with pregnancy. Lan Weihu stayed still and patiently waited for him to assess her situation. When she noticed that he was done reading her pulse, she continued, "It happened after you left me just now. I tried to catch up with you, but tripped over a stone and stumbled. I scraped my knees during the incident." As soon as she brought up the injury, she rolled up her pants to reveal her knees to him. Yin Chen's heart ached. He felt bad for leaving her alone just now. "Silly, Why didn't you say anything earlier? He quickly treated the wounds on her knees. Little Fox was a tall woman who possessed long and slender legs. Her skin was as white and fair as the snow, while her toes were small and exquisite, which perfectly complemented her well-arched feet. Although a woman's feet were not as private as her breast, no one would simply reveal her legs in public for everyone to see. Only husbands were allowed to see their wives' legs. Yinshin especially liked it when Little Fox revealed her legs in front of him. The sight of her slender legs usually got him excited. This time, she had put one of her legs on his lap. Her flawless skin looked even fairer under the light in the bedroom, which clearly caught the attention of the man in the room. Although Yinshin noticed what Little Fox was up to, surprisingly, he did not feel the excitement that he used to get when she seduced him in the past. He only kept his attention on her injured knees and applied some medicine to treat the wounds. Once he was done, Yinshin proceeded to massage her legs to try to soothe the soreness. Yinshin, my stomach is still hurting. The man had clearly been distracted by her legs and had forgotten about treating the main injury. The symptoms should not be taken lightly, as Lan Weihu could lose the baby because of the fall. Therefore, he wanted to get her adequately checked as soon as possible. Unfortunately, he was not a doctor and was not able to do so himself. I will ask Shijio to come and have a look. Yinshin rose to his feet as he spoke, but was halted by Lan Weihu. Yinshin, there is no need for that. It has been a really long day for Shijio. She must be very tired now. Let her rest. We should not trouble her with our own inconveniences. Lan Weihu sounded very kind and considerate. This is not a small matter. What if the baby is affected? Should I ask Dr. Meng to come and have a look at you? I heard she is good. Chapter 2650. The Identification. Everyone must be tired. We should not trouble anyone at this hour. Don't worry. There is only minor discomfort in my stomach. The baby should be fine. I will feel better if you rub my belly. Lan Weihu then put his hand on her stomach and said, "Do it very gently." Yinshin quietly did as she requested. Meanwhile, Gu Shijio, who had been invisible in the corner, saw everything that happened. Her medical skills and knowledge were excellent. With one look, she could already tell that Lan Weihu's baby was fine. In fact, she had made up the entire situation. Gu Shijio thought that Lan Weihu was only using it as an excuse to avoid going to the base of the Blue Fox family tomorrow. She guessed that Yinshin would be persuaded to turn down her offer, all for the sake of their baby. Nonetheless, to Gu Zijia's surprise, the sole purpose of the entire act was to seduce Yinshin. Lan Weihu was already on the bed, with her clothes unbuttoned, thus revealing the pink belly band that was loosely covering her bloated tummy. Her skin was as fine as polished jade, which was clearly inviting. Yinshin froze momentarily, and his hand stopped rubbing her tummy when he realized what she was up to. Gu Shijio stood in a daze as well, unsure if she should stay or leave. It was their very private moment, so it would not be so appropriate for her to stay in their bedroom. However, she was concerned about Yinshin. If Little Fox turned out to be an imposter, Yinshin would definitely feel very guilty for having sex with another woman. Both of them had been sleeping in separate bedrooms for almost 3 months now. Had they ever spent a night together during that period? Yinshin, what is the matter? Yinshin shook his head. Nothing. He then continued to rub her belly without doing anything more. Lan Weihu had always been very healthy. She hardly fell ill and did not even have period cramps bothered her. The only stomach pain that she had ever encountered was the aftermath of eating too much ice. At the time, Yinshin had to rub her belly to make her feel better, but they ended up doing more than just that. Since then, Little Fox was a little scared of asking him for help. This time, she was surprisingly the one who asked for the belly rub first. She grasped him by the wrist as she slowly traced his hand down her body. Yinshin finally recovered from his preoccupation as soon as he noticed some hair on his fingertips. Abruptly, he pulled his hand back and sighed. Little Fox, there's no need for that. Little Fox's face blushed crimson. Yinshin looked away and stepped back. Little Fox, there is no need for you to please me. Don't worry. No matter how much you dislike the intimate part of our relationship, I still love you, just the same. All right, you should rest. I will see you in the morning. He then stormed out of the room. Lan Weihu did not know what to say. She watched helplessly as Yin Shun left the room. What an idiot! She let out her frustration in a murmur. Slowly, she tidied up her clothes and fell asleep on the bed. Gu Shijio was still watching her. She could have easily extracted Lan Weihu's soul out of her body to identify who she really was. However, the extraction would definitely harm the baby. Besides, there were other ways to prove her identity, so there was no rush. Therefore, Gu Shijio left the room as well. She went to look Yin Shun by the hillside. He looked like he was patrolling since he was striding up and down the place, but in fact he was all caught up in a daze. Gu Shijio approached him and called him out, Yin Shun. Yin Shun was surprised to see her. Why haven't you gone to bed? Gu Shijio blatantly replied, I am thinking about little fox. What about her? Yin Shun, when did you find out about the pregnancy? Chapter 2651. Do you still feel the same about her? About 2 months ago, Dr. Meng found out about it. Gu Shijio seemed troubled by the revelation. Dr. Meng was a great physician who was also a loyal member of Tianju Hall. Her examinations should be accurate. Therefore, little fox must be genuinely pregnant. Shijio, is there something wrong? Yinshin was worried by Gu Zijia's troubled face. After a pause, Gu Shijio told him everything that she saw in the base of the Blue Fox family. She told him about Lan Yu and Duan Mayan. Pale-faced, Yin Shun was stricken with grief. He never knew that the Blue Fox family once belonged to inhabitants of another planet. Never had he thought that Little Fox's family were the invaders who burned, killed, and pillaged his home. If the people of Tianju Hall knew about it, they would definitely take their anger out on Little Fox. Shijio, why must Little Fox come with us tomorrow? If she finds out about the truth of her family, she will be so deeply saddened. She's pregnant, so I should try to keep her away from any extreme swings in her emotions. Yin Shun, have you noticed anything abnormal about Little Fox in the past month? Gu Shijio finally broke her silence. Yin Shun hesitated a little. Nothing. She has been the same. The only change was her attitude in bed, but that probably meant that she had become more mature. Moreover, her playful sexual attraction was nothing but a little spice in their relationship, which was something that Yin Shun was reluctant to share. How about your feelings? Do you still feel the same about her? Yin Shun could not answer immediately. Should be, he added a bit later on. Yin Shun, I want the truth. Don't try to fool me. I need to know how you feel about her. Yin Shun remained silent for a while. He did not know how to start, but he did notice how turned off he was whenever he was alone with Little Fox. He used to be so overwhelmed with a strong desire to touch and caress her, but things were different now. The only thing that he felt for her was responsibility. The overwhelming desire was no longer present. Shijio, what are you trying to say? Please tell me. He finally gave in. Gu Shijio hesitated a little, but decided that he needed to know. Lan Yu was not the only one that I saw in the base of the Blue Fox family. I also saw another woman who looked exactly like Little Fox. She was fatally injured, almost on the verge of dying. She was dying? Yin Shun exclaimed. Yes, her life was supported by a special herb. The family's doctor asked if she regretted anything, but she did not answer. Before I left, I saw her crying. No one knew that I was there, so there was no need for them to put on a show, just entertain me. Yin Shun clenched his fists in disbelief. He caught the hint and asked Gu Shijio in return, do you think that the woman is the real Little Fox? Is the one I have been seeing every day only an imposter? Upon uttering those words, Yin Shun quickly dismissed the thought. Gu Shijio continued. Although the woman looked exactly like Little Fox, her temperament was completely different. More importantly, the woman that I saw was not pregnant. Or at least, she did not look like it when I saw her a few days ago. Realizing that she had dropped a bomb on Yin Shun, Gu Shijio looked at him intently and said, Yin Shun, you are her husband, so you are the one who knows her best. Follow your heart. She took another look at the moon and was reminded of a past incident. By the way, do you remember that my soul was once placed in another body? I do. Your body was taken over by someone else, while your soul was forcibly placed in a clone body by Mo Zhao. He suddenly stopped talking as the sudden realization had hit him hard. Chapter 2652. I'm not interested in the throne, Yin Chen recalled the woman that he had injured the other day. Her eyes had sparkled with joy as soon as they met, and she did not hesitate to approach him. She seemed almost like a lost child who was seeking refuge from the first person she saw that she trusted. Lan Wei, who definitely trusted and loved Yin Chen wholly. Even if she were mad at him, that trust and love would not change. However, the first reaction that he had when he saw her was anger. He thought that his lady had pretended to be Little Fox, so he pushed her away at once. The more she claimed to be Little Fox, the angrier he got. He bombarded her with so many questions, but she could not even answer one. If you really are Little Fox, answer me this one important question. Where is our baby? Where's the child in your belly? Shocked, the woman could not answer his question. In fact, she could barely remember anything. The woman was still wearing the clothes from the enemy that he hated the most. She never stopped trying to hug him, as he was the only one that she remembered after escaping. Yin Chen, however, acknowledged her plea with a sneer and said that Little Fox had never left his side. As soon as she heard his words, she went crazy. Her bloodshot eyes clearly showed her indignation. She screamed at him and claimed that the other woman was an imposter. She was ready to kill and slash the woman into pieces. Her vile visage was something that Yin Chen had never seen. To him, she was a crazy woman. Driven by anger, Yin Chen hit her with a fatal attack. He was simply unconvinced that the woman was his wife. Although he kept telling himself that he did was the right thing, the look of astonishment and disbelief in the woman's eyes still haunted him. It made him feel so uncomfortable that he left at once. Every now and then, he would think about the woman, and his heart would ache for her. If the woman was really Little Fox, she must be really hurt by his action. The thought of her suffering was suffocating for him. He could not imagine how much pain she must have endured seeing the person she trusts hit her with a fatal blow. Shijio, tomorrow, I will. He looked up and stopped talking, for Gu Shijio was no longer there with him. He was alone by the hills. On the other end of the wizardry barrier, there was a hill just outside of Tianju Hall. A woman was sitting with her knees hugged tightly in her arms. Intently, her eyes lingered on the moon in a sentiment of longing. A man stood by her side quietly. The woman was the one person who looked exactly like Lan Weihu. By her side stood the man who healed her, Duan Mayan. I like this place. The woman finally broke the silence. Tears choked her words, but her smile never left. I was born and brought up here. I have my friends and the man I love here. I have never once thought that I didn't belong. Weihu, you have the royal blood of the Blue Fox family in you. The Blue Fox planet is your home, a place where you truly belong. You are the survivor of a legitimate royal bloodline, which is the purest form of all. You are even nobler than the royalty from the Blue Fox planet. Should you choose to return, the Blue Fox Emperor will be so pleased. You could be the successor. I'm not interested in the throne. Are you only interested in Yin Chen? It seems that the man already has another Lan Weihu by his side. You clearly saw with your own eyes how precious she was to him when they snuck across the border. Chapter 2653. I never believed in destiny. He did not hesitate to hit you with such a fatal strike that almost took your life. Without the soul-sustaining herb that belongs exclusively to the Blue Fox planet, you would be long dead by now, killed by the hands of the man you love. Duan Mayan marked his words with bitterness and hostility. The woman's lashes trembled. I still have friends, she said. The statement was clearly meant to hit back at Duan Mayan. Friends, Duan Mayan teased. They've yet to find out about your identity. Once they do you think that they will still think of you as a friend? Your death will become the only thing that they wish for in their lives. Little Fox, you should not be so naive. It is all because of your murderous acts of killing and burning the innocent. You are the one who is responsible. It is all because of you. Weihu, the law of the jungle applies everywhere. The weak will always give ways to the strong. These people were killed because they are vulnerable, and vulnerability is a sin. They are just like the farm animals that are bred to be killed. Their weakness has doomed them for eternity under humans' ruthless control. To us, all the people here are relatively uncivilized like the farm animals. Nonsense. It is all but an excuse for your invasion. Wehu, the Blue Fox planet has been stricken by too many disasters, which has made it no longer habitable for our people. The Blue Fox Emperor sent us out to find a better place to stay. We serve only the royalty there. In other words, we serve you too. You should not be too harsh on us. I am no royalty. You are. In that case, am I entitled to give you orders? Absolutely. Great. Now, take your troops and go back to where you came from. Wehu, you may give me orders once you return to the Blue Fox planet and accept your title as a princess. Why must I wait until my return? Because the heavenly order shall not be breached. I never believed in destiny. I do, and I am afraid that you have to as well. I know that you can single-handedly take me back to the Blue Fox planet. So what is the point of our conversation? I cannot fight you, even if I am reluctant to go. I do not like to take people away by force. I would like you to come with me willingly. You are already forcing me. In that case, I hope you surrender to it. Is that why you sent the imposter to him? To break my heart. She is not entirely an imposter. Her body has been made from the cells of your body. Her body is no different than yours. In fact, the main difference is your soul. There was a moment of silence before the conversation continued. Whose soul is that? Where did she come from? About that, I am afraid that I cannot tell you more. The heavenly secret must not be spilled. Wehu, ignorance is bliss in this case. You once said that what he loved was your soul, not your body. What you saw proves otherwise. He cannot even tell the difference. Your body is all that matters to him, regardless of whose soul is in it. The woman said nothing more, but sorrow filled her eyes. Duan Mayan reached out to her and said, "You should stop thinking about him. Let's go." Should she give up? The woman closed her eyes and remained deep in her thoughts. He was the man that she had truly loved for centuries. How could she let him go just like that? Chapter 2654. There are still plenty of opportunities. Lan Weihu clenched her fists in frustration. She really wanted to kill the imposter. Do you want to kill her? It is easy. Duan Mayan offered help. He seemed to have redder thoughts. The woman stared at his smile and was somewhat perplexed. By this hour, she should be asleep. I can take you there, and you can kill her. He offered his hand again and asked, "Would you like to go?" The woman stayed very still. What is the matter? Are you afraid that you might see Yin Chun embracing the naked woman in his arms? Are you worried that he might attack you again? She sat quietly in contemplation. Meanwhile, Duan Mayan looked at her fixedly, but his temperament became soft and gentle. After a while, he softly said, "Here, look at me." The lady seemed to be hypnotized all of a sudden. Slowly, she lost her consciousness, and there was only one thought in her head, which was to kill the imposter. A shade of emerald green slowly replaced her pitch-black eyes. At the same time, a steady flow of energy slowly took over her body like currents. Abruptly, she raised her arms and launched a strike across the fields, thus chopping the long grass in half. It looked as if the grass had been burnt off. Duan Mayan grasped her hand by the wrist. "Little fox, let's go. I will let you do what you wish to do." He was about to perform a spell, but was startled by a visitor nearby. "Little Shijio, you are here so quickly. Never mind. I shall postpone the trip. There are still plenty of opportunities." He snapped his fingers before Lan Wei's eyes to wake her up from the state of hypnosis. She opened her eyes and quickly freed her hand from his grasp. "What have you done?" "Nothing much. Little fox, we should go. You're still very weak, so you need a rest. I will escort you back." Without further ado, Duan Mayan took her hand and shoved her into a flying machine that was parked nearby. The machine rose into the sky and disappeared almost instantaneously. Not long after their departure, Gu Shijio showed up at the same spot. She took a turn around the field, trying to catch some sense, but was disappointed. There was only fresh air that surrounded the hill. There was no lead for her to trace. Nonetheless, the withered grass on the ground caught her attention. Unfortunately, as the grass was all yellow and shriveled, she could not tell exactly when it was cut. Troubled, Gushijio could not help but wonder if her sixth sense had failed her this time. It would seem that no one had been here. She yawned as she looked up at the moon. It was already very late at night. She knew that she should rest for the sake of her child. In Tianju Hall, Lan Weihu could be seen lying on her bed. She was not asleep yet, and there was a little earpiece in her hand. Master, Gushijio will be going to the base of the Blue Fox family tomorrow, along with Yin Chun and me. I will try to delay her, she hoarsely whispered. No need. Let her come to me, a stern voice replied from the other end. I will not be comfortable there. I am worried that my identity will be exposed. Don't worry. I will readjust and lower the sound waves in the base. You should be safe. There should not be a problem of keeping your identity concealed unless you are an idiot. Also, there will be a good show for you tomorrow. Yes. Meanwhile, Gushijio had just returned to her house. As soon as she arrived, a silvery blue jade on her waist started flickering. Surprised, she answered it and overheard a conversation between a man and a woman. Attentively, she listened to every word that they said and was pleased. You have finally revealed who you truly are, she said scornfully. She had bugged Lan Weihu's room earlier to get some evidence. Chapter 2655. The wolves are coming. Gushijio pondered about the details of the conversation between the clone Lan Weihu and her master from the Blue Fox planet. A sudden realization hit her that she had not detected any sound waves when she sneaked into their base earlier. Being a great deity blessed her with more or less an indestructible body. The sound waves did not bother her at all the last time that she was there. So, why was the fake Lan Weihu concerned about the sound waves? Was it because her body was weaker than normal? Was she a clone? Or was she using Little Fox's original body? Also, who was the person's master? What did he mean when he said there would be a show tomorrow? Whatever it was, Gushijio looked forward to the day. In the base of the Blue Fox family, Admiral Wan Yining was in a state of fury. All the vegetables and food that they had painstakingly collected were gone overnight, leaving nothing behind for his people. Moreover, so many of his ships had been destroyed, which basically magnified his losses over the last few days. Clearly, the man was frustrated. He could not understand how all this could happen. There was so much food in the storage. Even with the help of his ships, the delivery took more than 10 rounds just to send all the food from one point to another. How did everything disappear so mysteriously? Frustrated, he decided to ask Lan Yu about it. The Lord has a storage space that can expand infinitely, Lan Yu nonchalantly said. Wan Yining was speechless. He started picturing the tender woman in his head. She had such a thin and slender figure that he could easily scoop her away with one arm. To his utter surprise, the small woman was able to move away tons of his food supply at once. What a mighty woman, he thought. For the first time in his life, he was in awe of a woman. At the same time, he was also intimidated by her. In his mind, she was perhaps the only person in the starry crescent land that possessed any formidable level of spiritual power. The use of spiritual power was against any logical sense or scientific advancement. As a member of the Blue Fox planet, Guan Yining was very proud of so many technological breakthroughs that his planet had witnessed. He had been to many planets ever since he started voyaging the galaxy, but he had never respected any of the inhabitants. In his eyes, they were merely uncivilized species. He could basically wipe out entire civilizations with ease. None of them was able to defend themselves from his power. It was beyond his expectation that he would one day meet such a deadly threat. Although the members from the Blue Fox planet had experienced such breakthroughs in technological advancements, they still needed food, just like any other living civilization. Their overlooting had severely drained the sources of food in the starry crescent land. Therefore, the masses now lived in dire poverty. The accumulated food in their storage did not come easy, and yet there was no guarantee that they would have enough for breakfast the next day. Guan Yining quickly sent some men to scour for food, while he and his military officers discussed for a long-term solution. While having his discussions, he saw the general, along with the woman named Lan Weihu. Guan Yining felt rather confused as he did not understand why the general placed so much attention on the woman. Was she a survivor of the royal bloodline? Even if she were, the general would not have any authority to be around her. Had the general fallen for Lan Weihu? The general had always been an unfriendly and unapproachable man. What changed him this time? Guan Yining could tell that the general was behaving slightly differently over the past month. His behavior had become more and more unpredictable, and his whereabouts were always concealed. The soldiers did not feel close to the general anymore. The moon looks beautiful. Did you enjoy watching it with a beautiful woman by your side? Guan Yining went for it. What concerns do you have? Duan Mayan asked icily. I have none. I was only asking if you had a great time. General, the Lord has made us suffer a great deal. Not only has she destroyed our ships, but she has also stolen our food. Since you're in a mood to go out and watch the moon, I believe that you must have thought of a way to recover our stolen food. May I hear any suggestions from you, sir? Chapter 2656. The wolves are coming, too. All the other soldiers kept their attention on Duan Mayan, eager to see how he would respond. Duan Mayan gave Lan Weihu a gentle tap on her shoulder and said, You must be tired. Go to bed now. Lan Weihu brushed his hand away and walked away quietly. Apparently, she did not care to protect Duan Mayan's reputation in front of his men. Meanwhile, Guan Yining whistled scornfully. General, the lady did not seem to care about you. I did not know that she is actually your type. Before he was done talking, his foot suddenly caught something, and he crashed into the ground. His face went down first, thus scratching his lips with bloody wounds. He quickly stood up again and looked at Duan Mayan in disbelief. General, Duan Mayan was one of the few members from the Blue Fox planet who possessed psychic powers, especially involving telepathy. He could move anything with his mind or kill anyone by controlling a gun with only his mental power. Though ruthless, he was a man who honored his followers with respect, as they had been through life and death together. Those were the good old days when he was still friends with them. Guan Yining was never afraid to tease him in the past, but things took a quick turn for the worse this time. Duan Mayan looked at him sternly in the eye and asked, Are you done with your bullshit? His icy tone sent chills around the place. Guan Yining finally admitted to his own failure. I am sorry, sir. General, I was frustrated by the Lord's arrogance. She should be back in Tianju Hall by now. Should we take the opportunity and launch another attack? You have been leading the attack for 3 months now. Have you achieved anything yet? About that, we managed to break the turtle shell last time. Although they have sealed the hole, it is no longer the barrier that it used to be. I believe that we can shatter it this time, if we use all of our explosives. Dream on. The Lord is the one who created the barrier. Without her, perhaps we could break it after a few attempts. Now that she is back, I'm certain that it is as solid as it was before. Moreover, she possesses both teleportation and invisibility skills. She even mastered the use of our weapons. Do you really think that you can achieve anything from the attack? You will only risk losing all of our ships. Guan Yining remained quiet. He did not know how to argue with the general, but he refused to give up. Should we let her go just like that? Should we just hide in our comfort zone? Of course not. The general acknowledged it with a confident smile. She will be here tomorrow. Everyone who could hear the conversation got excited by the news. Guan Yining subconsciously clenched his fists as if he was ready to fight. They had lost to her because they were unprepared. This time, he believed that they were ready to defeat her, as long as they had time to plan out a proper comeback. You should all come up with a proper plan to give the Lord a good challenge tomorrow, Duan Mayan commanded. Yes, all of them answered in unison. You are not allowed to do anything at your own will tomorrow. Everything must be done according to my commands. Duan Mayan added. None of his men objected. Instead, they acknowledged his authority firmly before going away. All kinds of coordination and manpower were poured in to prepare different ambushes and setups at different places. It It was not an easy task to take the lord down, so the soldiers had to spend the entire night fine-tuning and modifying their weapons to the highest level. When all was done, the sky was already brightly lit. After the long night of preparation, all of the soldiers were tired, but they looked forward to the day. Some of the soldiers had never met Gu Shijio, so they were eager to see her. As for those who had suffered losses, they could not wait to give her a taste of her own medicine. All in all, despite their tiredness, they were waiting eagerly for her arrival. They kept their guard up as they knew that she was equipped with teleportation and invisibility skills. Chapter 2657. The Wolves Are Coming. 3. They watched attentively and would not overlook even the slightest change in the environment, be it a new wave of breeze or a fallen leaf. They had to be sure everything was safe. The troops waited for the entire day, from dawn to dusk, and then to dawn again, but she never showed. Right before sunrise, one of the military officers received some news from his follower, who was in charge of guarding the city. The man was shouting in a frantic manner through the call. "Officer, it is not looking good. Some unknown being has attacked our ships. Everything has been destroyed. All of it. Ah, here she comes. Damn it." That was the end of the call. Obviously, the man was dead. The military officer on the other end of the line was devastated by the loss. The city housed hundreds of his best men, along with dozens of ships. None of them survived the sudden attack. He quickly passed the message on to Duan Mayan. Duan Mayan finally realized that they were tricked by Gu Shijio. This was rather unexpected for the man because he made it a point not to be the one who contacted the Lan Weihu impersonator in order to prevent her identity from being exposed. She was always the one who called him first. They only spoke once that day, and according to her report, Gu Shijio had taken both her and Yin Shun out of Tianju Hall, but they were not heading for the base. Instead, Gu Shijio placed them in the city and left them alone. She told them to wait for her while she went away to make some preparations. The wait lasted the entire day. Yin Shun called Gu Shijio once, but was only told to wait. She told him that she would return when everything was done. The military officers and their soldiers had been waiting for so long, but the news that came was clearly devastating. Duan Mayan kept his composure and finally gave the fake Lan Weihu a call, but she did not answer it for a long time. When she finally did, all he could hear was her soft voice. "Master, we have returned to Tianju Hall. Yinshin never left my side the whole time, so I cannot find the right time to contact you. Gu Shijio told us that we would visit the base tonight." Duan Mayan was speechless. "If she really is coming tonight, report to me when you are around the corner." "Sure." "Is the news reliable?" She made a promise to Yin Shun. While Duan Mayan was having a call with the fake Lan Weihu, everyone else around him clearly heard everything. Their blood boiled with anger. "General, has your informant been exposed? Have we all been tricked?" Guan Yining asked. Duan Mayan thought about it for a moment before he replied. "Everyone should go and have some rest, so all of us can focus tonight. Gu Shijio must be trying to confuse us. Knowing her, she always keeps her word when it comes to her friends. She should be here tonight." All of the military officers looked at one another upon hearing the general. They chose to trust the general, for his wits and wisdom had never failed to impress them. Therefore, they quickly went to rest in order to prepare them for the night. In the end, they wasted the night waiting for nothing. Days went by, and they had spent almost 2 weeks waiting for nothing. Every time she said she would come, there would always be something that distracted her midway. Some days, she would change her plan and decide not to visit the base at all, but would still keep the fake Lan Weihu by her side to play a game of chess or to have some chats, so there was no time for the imposter to contact Duan Mayan. Other days, she would keep the fake Lan Weihu in Tianju Hall and take Yinshin out with her. Chapter 2658. The Wolves Are Coming. 4. There was once that Gu Shijio even brought Lan Weihu out of Tianju Hall alone, but was inseparable from her the entire time. She said that she needed to protect her and then strolled with her for the whole day. The entire scenes unfolded just like the story. The wolves are coming. She had used this trick 10 times in a row. She had deceived her enemy and taken down several cities while they were waiting for her arrival. The battleships that protected those cities were not the highest-rated ones. They stood no chance at all against Gushijio. Meanwhile, the generals in the base were growing increasingly frustrated by the day. Whenever they heard rumors about the Lord's arrival, it only made them feel sick and subconsciously want to vomit. They had lost their patience and did not even bother to stay in their positions to defend against an attack. Instead, they would just continue with their own work. For those who actually stood in their positions assigned to them by Duan Mayan, they would be yawning or half asleep at their stations or playing card games and mahjong. The Tianju Hall was certainly more lively than the base of the Blue Fox clan. Its source of food was increasing by the day as Gu Shijio continued to rob the granaries of the many cities that she had conquered over the past few days. There was no food left for the Blue Fox armies. The people in Tianju Hall no longer had to worry about food and water. Nonetheless, they were not simply hanging around while enjoying their improved standard of living. They had been learning how to utilize the weapons of the enemy, which Gu Shijio had retrieved from her conquests, in order to take them down. These things were considered as novelties to the people in Tianju Hall, but once they understood the technology behind the weapons, they were completely familiar with the weapons in an instant. In addition to the weapons that Gu Shijio stole from the cities, she even managed to seize some battle suits from the enemy. Although there were not enough suits for everyone, at least half of the people in Tianju Hall were able to get one. Everyone understood that the Lord was training them to go to war. Having witnessed firsthand the devastation brought about by these foreigners, the team under Gu Shijio did their best to prepare themselves and grow. Gu Shijio had always been mysterious, but everything she did was for a good reason. Therefore, even though she had been lying to Yinshun for half a month, he did not complain when he found out. He knew that she must have her own reasons for doing so. Lately, Yinshun had been thinking about the lady that looked exactly like Lan Weihu, who he injured and was now recuperating at the base of the Blue Fox family. He wanted to see her again, but Gu Shijio had strictly forbidden him to act alone and said that he would disrupt her plan. Yinshun respected her authority and did as told. The Lan Weihu around him was still lively and cheerful, as always. She persistently tried to seduce him to bed, but he still had no desire for her. This odd recurring behavior of hers naturally made Yinshun suspect that the girl beside him was an imposter, so he had tried several times to clear his suspicions but did not find anything wrong. He even checked her back to confirm whether the birthmark was real. It seemed legitimate. He also chatted with her and casually asked her questions about their past. She remembered everything and could answer all the questions that came her way. Even if she had forgotten some aspects of things that happened a long time ago, once she was given some clues, she could recall it right away. This made it seem as though she was the genuine Lan Weihu. Yinshun also looked for Gu Shijio in private and asked for her opinion. Unfortunately, she did not have much to say but asked him to feel it with his heart. The little fox that was with him was pregnant, so as long as he was not 100% sure that this one was a fake, he did not want to harm her. He will still guard her with his life. Aside from serving her in bed, he did almost everything for her and pampered her, as usual. On this day, Gu Shijio came to find Yinshun and Lan Weihu. Let's go. We will head to the base of the Blue Fox family today. Chapter 2659. Where does it hurt? Liar. The imposter secretly whispered. The Lan Weihu imposter had continuously been berated by her master for feeding him incorrect information about their planned visit. It was driving him and the troops crazy. Shijio, I don't feel very well today. Can we go tomorrow? Lan Weihu did not want to do this useless work anymore. Not going at all was better than pretending to go, but not actually ending up there. You're not feeling well? Where does it hurt? Come, let me check on you. Gu Shijio sat next to her and touched her wrist. Lan Weihu was speechless. She forgot that Gu Shijio was an expert physician. Pretending to be sick would definitely lead to intense questioning, so Lan Weihu quickly pulled her hand away. I think I have overeaten, so I feel very bloated. Perhaps walking might improve my digestion, so maybe we should go out. Where are we going today? The base of the Blue Fox family. Are you going to do something else first? I don't think so. Ah, as long as no one suddenly starts looking for me in the middle of our journey, I will not take any detours today, Gu Shijio promised. Nonetheless, her promises did not mean much to Lan Weihu anymore. During their last few trips, Gu Shijio had claimed to receive directed audio messages that required her immediate attention. She would then disappear for the entire day. She had used the same excuse about 4 times already. Lan Weihu cursed Gu Shijio in her heart. There was nothing that she could do besides adhering to her requests. After all, she was the Lord, a person who could make the earth tremble with a single stomp on the ground. She could not afford to reject her. She could not help but look at Yin Shun for some kind of assurance. Yin Shun was expressionless, but he straightened his shirt and said, Weihu, go and tidy up yourself. We'll depart soon. Lan Weihu was helpless, so she entered the house to pack her things. After entering the house, she took out her secret directed audio spell, but paused before she switched it on. Her last few attempts to inform Duan Mayan of their planned visit resulted in the man threatening her. He said, If your report is false again, I will screw your head down into the ground like a ball to kick. Therefore, after some contemplation, she decided not to make a report this time. Only when she was sure that Gu Shijio really wanted to go to the base would she look for an opportunity to report the situation. Lan Weihu found herself standing outside the wizardry barrier of the Blue Fox family and was stunned. They really came. Gu Shijio meant what she said and did not take any detours today. The informant knew that she should inform her boss of their presence. Otherwise, he might rip her into pieces. Shijio, I want to go to the toilet first. Lan Weihu had to come up with an excuse to have some time alone. Okay. Gu Shijio did not doubt her. Go. She looked around and saw a small shrubbery nearby. She then pointed at it and said, Go there. Lan Weihu nodded and went in the direction that Gu Shijio had told her to go. However, she did not rush to pee, but instead took out her directed audio spell. When she was about to contact Duan Mayan, she could hear a breeze around her. Gu Shijio had suddenly appeared at her side. Lan Weihu was shocked, and the directed audio spell in her hand almost fell to the ground. Shijio, why are you here? She stuttered. Gu Shijio looked at her with concern. I just saw a black shadow pass this place and was afraid that you had encountered something unexpected. After all, this is their territory, so we should be careful. Okay, you can pee now. I will wait here to make sure that you are safe. She took 2 steps back and waited patiently for her to do her business. Lan Weihu was speechless. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead as she complained in her heart. Since Gu Shijio was so close to her, she naturally did not dare to use the directed audio spell now. When she squatted to pee, she kept the directed audio spell that full of sweat back in her pocket. Chapter 2660, Useless Idiots. While squatting, she tried to come up with an excuse to delay Gu Shijio so that she could find a way to report to her master. With that in mind, she tripped and fell toward a big stone next to her. She wanted to hurt herself, and it would be even better if there were signs that it could lead to a miscarriage so that they could go straight back to Tianju Hall. However, before she started rolling toward the stone, she had been caught by Gu Shijio, who had teleported over. She did not hurt herself at all. The imposter secretly gritted her teeth, but she had to look grateful on the surface. Thank you, Shijio. Thank you very much. In her heart, she was also wondering if Gu Shijio had been staring at her the entire time. Had she been exposed? Gu Shijio patted her on the shoulder and asked, How can you be so careless? Foot. My foot was numb. Do you want me to give you a massage? Gu Shijio still showed that she cared about her. No, I'm good now. Lan Weihu did not dare to let her touch her foot. Otherwise, her lie would be exposed too. Gu Shijio sighed and could only advise her. You have to be more careful. After that, they walked back over to Yin Shun. Yin Shun, she is pregnant now. It is not very convenient for her to be alone. She almost fell and bumped into a big stone. Please look after her at all times. Do not leave her side. Yin Shun's facial expression changed. He quickly placed his arms on Lan Weihu and said, Rest assured, Weihu, I will always stay by your side. Lan Weihu remained silent, but felt extremely bitter about recent events. At first, Yin Chun had given her space and did not even know what she was up to. Now, he was going to be inseparable from her. Perhaps she might not have a chance to contact her boss anymore. The technology that belonged to the Blue Fox planet was superb. However, it did not have things like a wizardry barrier. Gu Shijiu could tell that the wizardry barrier set up at the Blue Fox base was put in place by Lan Yu and his great elders. It was an extraordinary kind of barrier. Only a few people could unlock it. Lan Weihu, as the high priest of the Blue Fox family, was one of the few people who was capable enough to do so. Both Gu Shijiu and Yin Chun had seen her open the wizardry barrier here, and it had not changed since the last time. Therefore, Lan Weihu could not pretend that she did not know how to do it. Under intense observation from Gu Shijiu, she had to open it with a bitter heart. She just hoped that there would be new defense facilities in the barrier, so that when they entered the inside, the mechanisms could detect the intrusion. However, things did not seem to be going in the imposter's favor. The three of them had entered the base for 15 minutes, and the people inside still did not notice them. They were either sleeping or drinking or playing cards around the place. Meanwhile, the soldiers that actually patrolled the area were like blind men. Although the three of them clearly walked past them, they did not notice them at all. It was rather annoying for Lan Weihu as she recalled that the guards had proudly claimed that they could even identify the gender of mosquito if it passed them. Useless idiots! Lan Weihu cursed in her heart. She wanted to make a move to get their attention, but Yin Chun was very close to her at all times. It would be too suspicious. Although there were various infrared scanners in this base, Gu Shijiu had created some special protection over the three of them that could keep them under the radar. Hence, they could really come and go as they liked. The only thing that Lan Weihu had going for her now was the fact that Gu Shijiu had not done anything damaging. They just wandered around, which made Lan Weihu extremely nervous the entire time. Chapter 2661. Authentic or fake, it was certainly an odd feeling for Lan Weihu, as she was hoping to be caught. If that did not happen, at the very least, she hoped that Gu Shijiu would just wander here for a while and then take them back and not create any trouble. As for Yin Chun, the more he walked around, the paler his face became. He had visited the Blue Fox clan countless times, but it was the first time he saw it in its new glory. Buildings that he had never seen before seemed to have suddenly risen from the ground. Although the architectural styles were similar to the original residents of the Blue Fox clan, the scale and the materials were completely different. It seemed like the buildings were made from some kind of metal. As he passed by a building, he subconsciously touched it to assess the type of material that they used. He felt the unique coldness of the metal and its smoothness, which was like jade. The material was foreign to him, so he decided to apply the same amount of strength he would use to crush a diamond. However, he did not even leave a mark on it. Apparently, this metal was much harder and stronger than diamond. Yinshin estimated that it would be impossible for anyone with a spiritual power below 10 to inflict any damage on the metal. Unfortunately, there were less than 10 people with a level 10 spiritual power and above in the Starry Crescent land. Even though the buildings would clearly be challenging to attack, this was not the main reason why Yin Chan's facial expression changed. He was more stunned when he saw the native Blue Fox people. The man had traveled to the Blue Fox clan many times and knew some of the people there, especially those at the top of the hierarchy. Most of them no longer dressed the same. They no longer wore long robes with big sleeves. Instead, they wore short robes and trousers. In fact, they were similar to shirts and pants, but Yinshin did not know what it was at the time, so he thought of them as short robes. The color of the men's clothes was iron gray, while the women's clothes were light gray. Even though they dressed differently, they still seemed to be freely doing their own things. From time to time, some of the foreigners would pass through the streets. The native Blue Fox people often waved their hand at them, and some even referred to them as their brother or sister. Although Yin Chun had dealt with the invaders several times, they were always hiding in their armored monster ships. So this was the first time Yin Chun clearly saw the appearance of these outsiders. Most of the outsiders had high noses and deep-set eyes. They did not look like Asians. In fact, their eyes were very similar to the native blue fox people. Most of the people had dark blue eyes that looked a bit like fox eyes. When they smiled, their watery eyes sparkled under the sunlight. Therefore, what Gu Shijio said was true. The blue fox family was indeed the same breed as these outsiders. Although Gu Shijio had already told Yin Chun in advance, seeing it with his own eyes was still an eye-opener. Over the past year, these invaders had committed a lot of crimes in the Starry Crescent Land, and the locals absolutely despised them. They could not wait to kill them all and seek revenge for their fallen loved ones. Unfortunately for Yin Chun, the bloody truth of it all was that his wife and these alien invaders were one family. He felt like an anti-Japanese warrior who had suddenly found out that his beloved wife was Japanese. The aura he exuded was rather gloomy following that revelation. He naturally understood that little fox was innocent and was a good wife to him. However, it did not mean that the other people in the Starry Crescent Land could understand. Once they knew the truth, could they forgive little fox? Chapter 2662. Authentic or Fake 2. He looked at Lan Weihu, who was beside him to gauge her response to the situation. Her face was visibly pale as well. It seemed like she was surprised by the place as well. Don't be afraid. I will protect you. He held Lan Weihu's little hand as he spoke. Lan Weihu bit her lip and looked at him with tears rolling in her eyes. Will you dislike me after seeing all that my family has done? No. It has nothing to do with you. Yenshin rubbed her hair and assured her. Lan Weihu leaned into his arms and spoke softly. I am still terrified. What are you afraid of? I'm afraid that your friends will not be able to accept me once this has been exposed. Yenshin was not very good at lying, even when he needed to comfort someone. He was silent for a while before he replied. This matter has nothing to do with you. If they really can't accept you, I will run away with you to stay away from any troubles. Lan Weihu remained silent. Yenshin's remarks are what any girl wanted to hear. Her eyes shimmered slightly as she slowly reached out her arms and held Yenshin's waist. She did not speak, but just leaned her head against his muscular chest. Having her so close to him, Yenshin could not help but sniff her familiar scent. All of a sudden, he felt very sorry for the way he had been treating her. Once he had his suspicions about her, he grew rather wary of his wife. But now, looking at her natural movements and familiar appearance, he felt that he had overthought the situation. The only change that he had seen in her behavior was the fact that she was trying to seduce him very often. Nonetheless, could it be because she suddenly changed her mind and understood him better? The thought of this made him feel even more guilty. He stretched out his arm around her and gave her a kiss on her forehead. Rest assured, little fox, I will not abandon you. The two of them embraced each other tightly. As the three of them had an invisible spell around them to keep them safe, they did not always go around together. At that very moment, Gu Shijio was not with them. Instead, she went to visit the battleship hangar. The security facilities that were the most advanced in the area with a variety of high-precision instruments. Gu Shijio was not very sure if she could walk in undetected, so she asked Yenshin to go to wander around somewhere safer first while she went in to investigate. Gu's Zygia spells had worked wonders for the three of them so far. They had met with several patrol staff along the way, and no one had noticed them. As an added safety measure, Gu Shijio managed to get the three of them changed into the uniform worn by the Blue Fox people. Therefore, even if they were discovered, they could blend themselves with the Blue Fox people and wait for an opportunity to escape. Yenshin was still hugging Lan Weihu tightly in his arm. He felt a warm feeling in his heart that he had denied himself from feeling for some time. He suddenly thought that he had been somewhat cruel to her for rejecting her so many times in the past. He paused for a moment and then whispered in her ear, "When we go back, let's stay together again." Lan Weihu's eyes brightened, knowing what he meant at once. Her pretty face turned red, and she nodded. Okay. Her blushing cheeks were like red apples, which made her look very cute. Yin Chen's heart jumped at the sight of it, and he kissed her cheek gently. Little fox, Before he finished his sentence, he suddenly couldn't continue speaking. He saw a beautiful woman standing in the distance with a long, neat hair that was tied behind her head with a ribbon. She was wearing a light blue large robe, but looked a little weak and pale. Only the space in between her eyebrows was bright red. This was the woman who looked exactly like Lan Weihu. At this very moment, she was leaning against a pillar, and her eyes were looking in Yin Chen's direction. It was rather direct, which made him feel that she could see them. The man's heart rate was already slightly elevated earlier, but right now, it was racing uncontrollably. Subconsciously, he let go of Lan Weihu and walked toward the woman. Lan Weihis grabbed his sleeve and sent a directed audio to him. Yin Shun, this woman and I look alike. Chapter 2663. Authentic or Fake 3. The two women certainly looked very similar. However, Yin Shin was confident that they looked more similar the last time he met her. Lan Weihu was always cheerful and lively. Although she was not plump, she had a round, chubby face. It was adorable and always enticed people to hug her. However, the woman in front of him was rather skinny and no longer had the cute chubby face that he knew Lan Weihu to have. Her black and bright round eyes had also curved slightly upward. Furthermore, her pupils were now black and purple, so when she looked at people, it was like a whirlpool that could suck them into her eyes. Her temperament was also very gloomy, which made it seem like she was not of this world. Yin Shin looked at the little fox beside him, then looked at the woman again. In fact, the two of them were very different once he had a more thorough look. The woman did not look like little fox anymore. However, when he saw her, his heart still seemed to be attracted by something. He felt a pain in his chest. When the soldiers of the Blue Fox planet passed her, they would salute her and greet her. Royal Highness Princess. She always ignored them, which made her seem cold and indifferent. Brother Yin Shun, is she the princess of these bad guys? I didn't expect her to look like me, Lan Weihu commented. Maybe she is. Yin Shin whispered in response while his eyes were still focused on the woman. Lan Weihu was unhappy with his responses to her and tugged his sleeve. Brother Yin Shun, are you fascinated by her? Yin Shin was stunned by her question and quickly turned to look at her. He noticed her familiar, jealous expression at once. It was very accurate to how Lan Weihu used to express her jealousy in the past. Yin Shin shook his head slightly at the sight of it. No matter how good people were at disguising themselves, it was impossible to have the same habitual movements that were so consistent. He was sure that the little fox beside him was the authentic one. Perhaps that woman, the princess of these outsiders, entangled with him at the time because she wanted to pretend to be little fox in order to sneak into Tianju Hall. Fortunately, he could distinguish them at the time. He did not want to make little fox jealous anymore. So he stopped looking at the princess and comforted Lan Weihu by rubbing her head. It is impossible. Stupid. I only have you in my heart. How can I be fascinated by other women? I was watching her because she looks like you. Lan Weihu snorted and revealed the dimples on her cheek. Okay, this is acceptable to me. She snuggled in Yin Chin's arm and looked at the woman with eyes full of smug. Princess, how are you able to stand in the wind? A man walked out of a room with a cloak in his hand. He walked over to the woman and put the coat on her shoulder. The woman did not move and let him tie the cloak for her. When Lan Weihu saw this man, she immediately went stiff. She hid behind Yin Shun and did not even dare to breathe too hard. Yin Shun also stared at the man. The man wore a simple short robe and a pair of trousers. His eyes were bright, and he carried a rather calm temperament. From his appearance, he seemed to be someone in the military that also carried a noble status. He was also a very handsome man. Who was this man? He could not be an ordinary sergeant, seeing that he was allowed to be so close to the princess. However, he had not worn his military uniform, so Yin Shin could not tell his actual status. He could only infer that the man had a high rank. Let's go. I will take you around. You are too weak to go alone, but it is good for you to enjoy the sun. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.